Chapter 127. Lion's Roar, a high-grade mystic-class martial technique. Using vibrations to generate sound waves, combined with spiritual power attacks, it could kill without leaving a trace. Lin Xian was getting more and more excited. He had a vague idea that if the sound waves were combined with soul power, it would be even more lethal and difficult for the opponent to defend against. After all, soul attacks were too rare, and martial artists who cultivated soul power were even rarer. At least until now, Lin Xian had not seen anyone use soul attacks. He could be said to have an eidetic memory. After a quick glance, he imprinted all the contents in his mind. Roar! Lin Xian operated according to the method. The air vibrated and rippled like water. Terrifying cracks appeared on the wall in front of him. Seeing the effect, he smiled with satisfaction and then looked at the mountain suppressing hand. This was the Ling family's secret technique, a low-grade spiritual martial technique. Its power was unimaginable. However, the Ling family disciples' cultivation was too low, so they could not display its full power. According to the manual, at the highest level, one could condense 5 giant mountains. The power was no different from a real mountain or even stronger. Lin Xian studied it seriously and found that he could use the first level, which was to condense a giant mountain. However, he did not dare to use it in this blood-colored palace. If someone found out, the Ling family elders would not let him off. No matter how powerful he was, he did not think that he could compete with an elder. Therefore, it was better to be cautious. Lin Xian searched along the way. Under the guidance of Wine Lord, he came to a herb garden. There were obviously more martial artists here than in other places, but most of them were in the periphery. Not many could go deep. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes to look and found that the entire herb garden was protected by a defensive array. However, due to the passage of time, the defensive array had become dilapidated. There were many loopholes in many places. Even so, it was not a place where ordinary martial artists could casually enter. However, there were many spiritual herbs in the herb garden, which were too attractive to martial artists. Even if their lives were in danger, they still wanted to take the risk. Saffron flower! Someone exclaimed not far away. Everyone looked over and saw a disciple with a flushed face. He was extremely excited. In front of him there was a blue flower. It was very beautiful, like a sapphire. So it's this kind of spirit medicine. It's almost extinct in the cloud state. It can only be found in the depths of the Taihang Mountains. Lin Xian was also slightly moved. An orange light flashed in his eyes and then he frowned. Under the effect of his spirit eyes, he could see things that ordinary people could not see. There were some deadly traps around that navy blue flower, which were powerful enough to kill a Sea of Souls realm warrior. Don't pick it, it's a trap. Lin Xian warned in a low voice. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Some people were bewildered, but most of them were sneering. Who do you think you are? You found a trap just by looking at it? Someone sneered. What a joke. He must have said it on purpose because he was jealous. The disciple in the herb garden also sneered. Don't bother, I'm going to pluck this flower. Lin Xian sighed inwardly and stopped paying attention. As for that disciple, he slowly stretched out his hand in front of everyone's envy. His hand was getting closer and closer. When it was 3 feet away from the navy blue flower, ripples appeared in the air. A bolt of blue lightning appeared out of nowhere and struck that disciple directly. The powerful electric current killed him instantly. Puff! The charred corpse fell to the ground, with wisps of black smoke still rising from it. Hiss! Everyone gasped, and their backs were drenched in cold sweat. It was too terrifying. Nothing happened a moment ago, and the next moment he died in a strange place. Such a strange method was terrifying. Apart from the fear of the herb garden, everyone was more impressed by Lin Xian. Not only was he able to detect danger, but he was also kind enough to warn them. This kind of warrior was really rare. Many disciples blushed. They were just mocking Lin Xian not long ago. Who knew that they were the ignorant ones? Many disciples began to look for Lin Xian, but they found that he seemed to have disappeared. He's there. Finally, someone found Lin Xian's figure, but even more people were disappointed. They originally wanted Lin Xian to give them some pointers, but he had already gone into the depths of the herb garden. It was too late to say anything now. Many people secretly gritted their teeth and regretted it. Lin Xian stood in the herb garden and walked carefully. He would occasionally reach out and pluck some spiritual herbs. Every time he plucked, he would leave some roots or seeds so that these spiritual herbs could continue to grow. In the blink of an eye, he had already plucked 5 spiritual herbs. Gradually, Lin Xian left the herb garden and walked inside. There were some houses and some figures. Among them, Lin Xian found Wan Jianxing, Yuan Fei, and other disciples. However, the personal disciples were not here. Lin Xian's arrival only made these people turn around to take a look before turning back. Couldn't be helped. Although Lin Xian had killed many Sea of Soul Realm warriors, he was still not famous in these people's eyes. However, he didn't care. Under such circumstances, the less attention he had, the easier it was for him to move. If I'm not wrong, this should be a place to refine pills. Someone analyzed, I don't know why, but every once in a while, some pills will be spewed out. Can we break the seal and enter? The people here were all elite disciples with high cultivation and status. They didn't want to wait and tried all kinds of methods to enter. However, so far no one had succeeded. Lin Xian stood at the side and understood the situation clearly. Is there really no way to enter? Lin Xian asked Wine Lord. Difficult. If your cultivation was higher, maybe you could. But now it's too difficult. Wine Lord said slowly. Lin Xian sighed softly. At this moment, the house in front emitted a light and several rainbows flashed out. Pills are coming out. With a cry of surprise, the nearby warriors all became alert and stared at the few rays of light in the sky. Lin Xian used purple spirit eyes and found that each ray of light was wrapped around a pill. Every pill was different. Some were white, some were red, some were as big as a longan, and some were smaller than a grape. Grab the one on the far left. Wine Lord reminded. Lin Xian looked up and was puzzled. The pill that Wine Lord mentioned was the smallest among all the pills, and its color was dim, as if it was a waste pill. Someone had already jumped up and pounced on the largest pills. Although Lin Xian was puzzled, he still ran toward the dim pill. There were a total of 5 elixirs in the air. Among them, the largest one, a vermilion elixir, was being fought over by the crowd. Many cultivators also bid for the other elixirs. Only the elixir that Lin Xian had his eyes on had the fewest people, with only 3 people bidding for it. Lin Xian was one of them. As for the other 2, one was a disciple of the Lotus Glory sect, and the other was a disciple of the Chun family, one of the 4 great families. Both of them were in the middle stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm, and their powerful auras shrouded the surroundings. Chapter 128. The 5 pills in the air attracted a lot of people to fight for them. Lin Xian jumped up and rushed towards the smallest pill. At the same time, 2 other spiritual sea realm martial artists made a move as well. His eyes flashed. Under the effect of the purple spirit pupil, he could clearly sense the cultivation of the other 2. In the eyes of outsiders, the 2 were at the first layer of the spiritual sea realm, but in front of Lin Xian, they were not strong enough. Golden electric arcs jumped under his feet. Lin Xian's body was covered with the power of wind and thunder. He quickly rushed towards the pills in the air. His speed was much faster than the other 2. Let go! How dare you! 2 angry shouts came. Their arms shook, and fierce spiritual power surged towards Lin Xian. They were all young men in their 20s. How could they tolerate a young man running in front of them? Feeling the energy behind him, Lin Xian sneered. He did not look back but hit out with a backhand chop. A bright sword ray flew out and turned into a waterfall in the air. With a fierce aura, it crashed into the attack from behind. At the same time, Lin Xian flicked his 4 fingers. For green sword chi, containing supreme sword intent, broke through the air and flew towards the 2 behind him. Pung! Pung! 3 bursts of energy collided, emitting a dazzling light. What followed was a violent vibration. Whoosh! Whoosh! Before the vibration subsided, 4 sword rays shot out from the inside like 4 divine swords, piercing towards the 2. The 2 martial artists who were fighting for the pills felt the fierce aura. Their scalps went numb, and they hurriedly formed a defense in front of them, hoping to block the horrifying sword chi. They never thought that the thin young man in front of them could release such a powerful sword ray. The aura on it made them tremble from the bottom of their hearts. Just as the 2 were in a hurry to defend, Lin Xian had already arrived in front of the pill. He grabbed it with his right hand. After getting it, he quickly retreated. All of this happened in an instant. When Lin Xian landed, the fight for the other pills had also ended. Wang Jianqing and Yuan Fei each got one, and the other two were taken by the two spiritual sea realm youths. After Yuan Fei received the elixir, he quickly put it away and turned to look in Lin Xian's direction. Actually, what he wanted to see was not Lin Xian, but that nearby Lotus Glory sect disciple. However, when he saw Lin Xian holding the dandan, he was slightly stunned. He narrowed his eyes and carefully stared at Lin Xian. When he sensed Lin Xian's cultivation in the early stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm, his eyes lit up. To be able to snatch the elixir pills from the hands of two middle-stage martial artists when he's only in the initial stage of cultivation, I'm afraid his means are not simple. Yuan Fei's eyes had a hint of curiosity, but that was all. Sensing Yuan Fei's gaze, Lin Xian raised his head and smiled. Then, with a flip of his hand, he swallowed the pill. This guy. Yuan Fei raised his eyebrows in astonishment. The medicinal effect of this kind of elixir was very strong. Usually, one would need to cultivate in seclusion to maximize its effects. Who would swallow it casually like Lin Xian? Lin Xian seemed to be reckless, but he had already secretly asked Wine Lord. When he found out that this was a kind of elixir that strengthened the essence, he swallowed it without hesitation. So bitter. Lin Xian frowned and muttered in dissatisfaction. A few cultivators who were closer to him swayed when they heard this. They were so angry that they couldn't help but tremble. This was a spirit elixir. It's fine if you casually eat it like candy, but you actually think it's bitter? Don't be so infuriating. The few of them had strange expressions and walked away angrily. Lin Xian shrugged, took out the red flame sword, and inserted it into the ground beside him. Then, he took out a cup of spirit wine and drank it in one gulp. Then he closed his eyes and started cultivating. Many people asked about the spirit qi and looked at Lin Xian with cold gazes. However, when they saw his Black Heaven sect uniform, they suppressed their ill intentions. The Black Heaven sect's top disciple Wang Jianqing was still here. They did not dare to openly snatch something from a Black Heaven sect disciple. Looks like the Black Heaven sect has produced another outstanding disciple. Yuan Fei glanced at Wang Jianqing and said casually. Wang Jianqing also glanced at Lin Xian. His eyes flashed and no one knew what he was thinking. I heard that he has comprehended sword essence. I will fight him sooner or later. So you don't have to provoke me. Wang Jianqing said coldly. Sword essence. Yuan Fei was surprised and looked at Lin Xian again. He did not expect this young man to be the disciple who had comprehended sword essence. In fact, he was not the only one. The martial artists nearby all looked at Lin Xian with vigilance in their eyes. Regardless of this young man's current cultivation, just the fact that he had comprehended sword essence was enough to shock them. Lin Xian did not know what these people were thinking. He was digesting the energy contained in the elixir and spirit wine. With the elixir that he had just snatched, the spiritual sea in his body had been completely stabilized. The green spiritual sea spun continuously and produced an endless amount of energy. From afar it looked like a piece of crystal clear jade. Above it was a mysterious glazed small sword. Lin Xian could clearly feel the seed of sword essence inside. It had grown from the size of a bean to more than an inch tall. After fully comprehending sword essence, Lin Xian realized that sword essence was divided into many levels. He had only comprehended 10% of sword essence. The art of longevity circulated quickly. Lin Xian absorbed the energy crazily. With Wine Lord around, he did not have to worry about the situation outside. After an hour, he slowly opened his eyes. There was an invisible sword radiance shining in his pupils. He stood up and realized that everyone was waiting with rapt attention. Their bodies were faintly glowing. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. After a while, more elixirs were spat out. One of them was colorful. As soon as it appeared, it emitted a strong medicinal fragrance, attracting everyone's attention. It's this elixir. Wine Lord was also surprised. Little Xian, if possible, get this elixir. Wine Lord said in a low voice. It might be useful to me. Lin Xian nodded. Although he did not know Wine Lord's actual situation, he vaguely knew that Wine Lord seemed to be severely injured and trapped in the mysterious small sword. Don't worry. Just an elixir. It's easy. Lin Xian grinned. With a stomp of his feet, he soared into the air and flew towards the five-colored pill. The other warriors also moved. Most of them were heading toward the colorful elixir. Whoosh! 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 The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. The warriors' bodies glowed as they attacked each other to fight for the elixir. A warrior stretched out his palm and turned it into a giant hand of spiritual energy. It was the size of a millstone and covered the colorful elixir. Open! Yuan Fei shouted. His body was as powerful as a horned dragon. He shattered the spiritual energy hand with a punch. In another direction, Wang Jianqing stabbed out with his sword. It was like a falling star repelling several warriors. His cold gaze shone in all directions. However, more warriors rushed forward. They did not know the use of the elixir, but they knew that it was extraordinary based on its aura. Although they might not be able to consume it, if they took it out and handed it to their families or sects, they would be rewarded handsomely. Even if they did not hand it over, they could sell it at an auction and make a lot of money. Chapter 129. A sword qi more than 10 feet long, thick and sharp, slashed towards the crowd as if it was going to crush the void. The martial artists, including Yuan Fei and Wang Jianqing, were all shrouded by the sword. Some of the people in the distance were shocked. Who was this guy? How could he be so arrogant as to slash at so many people? Yuan Fei and Wang Jianqing were also stunned. Then they were enraged. They were the top fighting force here, and no one dared to provoke them. Even if they did, they would act as if they were facing a great enemy. They would not be like this, slashing at everyone. They landed on the ground with gloomy faces. The five-colored spiritual pill was trapped in the air by their spiritual power and kept hovering in the air. In front of the alchemy room, the atmosphere was heavy, and many martial artists looked at one person. The person who had attacked was Lin Xian. He had slashed his sword at the five-colored elixir. Therefore, any warrior who approached the elixir would be attacked. What do you mean? Wang Jianxing's body was full of sword qi, as if he was going to attack at any time. Yuan Fei and the others also stared at Lin Xian unkindly. It's simple. This pill is mine. Lin Xian's voice was calm, as if he was talking about something normal. However, when these words fell into the ears of the crowd, it was like a stone falling into a lake, causing a huge uproar. Yuan Fei narrowed his eyes and stared at Lin Xian unkindly. His eyes were like a ferocious beast, as if he was going to eat someone. Since we are from the same sect, I'll spare your life. Get out of here. Wang Jianqing sneered. The other martial artists also laughed. If a martial artist at the second sky of the spiritual sea realm said this, they might be afraid. However, they would not take a brat who had just entered the spiritual sea realm seriously. Brother Wan, I'm sure the Black Heaven sect won't mind if I teach this kid a lesson. A young man in blue smiled evilly. Wang Jianqing did not say anything, which meant that he acquiesced to this action. He also wanted to see how powerful the legendary sword intent was. The young man took a big step forward, and his body emitted crackling sounds. Fiery red spiritual power pulsated like real flames. Kid, let me see what kind of ability you have to say such big words. What's your name? Lin Xian's expression was calm. I don't beat up nameless people. The young man's face instantly turned red from anger. My name is Chanan, you'll remember it. The blue-clothed youth used his spiritual power to condense 2 fire snakes, which wrapped around his arms. Then he blasted out with both palms. Spirit snake palm. Light and shadows warped, and the air emitted scorching heat. Several snake shadows danced about, crisscrossing as they advanced. In an instant, a terrifying heat wave rushed over. If it weren't for the protection of the surrounding array formation, everything within a radius of 10 feet would have been roasted dry. This is the Chan clan spirit snake palm. It looks like he has reached the second stage of spirit snake emergence. Someone recognized the martial skill used by the young man and whispered, "Let's see how that brat deals with it." Many martial artists sneered. Even a martial artist in the middle stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm would have to take this temperature seriously. Lin Xian waved his hand and the crimson flame greatsword appeared. He waved the greatsword and pointed it at the fire snake's head. Crack! Crack! The 10-meter-long flame spirit serpent was suddenly covered with cracks. Under everyone's astonished gazes, it shattered into pieces. So accurate. Could it be that he knows the flaw of the spirit snake palm? The onlookers were shocked. The young man Chanane's face was ashen. He didn't expect his ultimate skill to be so weak. Die! Waving both palms, for fiery red spirit serpents left his body and pierced towards Lin Xian from different directions. Dance of the wind and moon. Holding the long sword horizontally, Lin Xian spun like a top, forming a green light screen of sword qi in the area of 10 feet in front of him. Qi, qi, qi. Like a meat grinder, all the flame serpents that approached him were all killed by the sword light. What other moves do you have? Come on out, Lin Xian said in a low voice. If not, then it's my turn to attack. Humph, don't be too proud. I'll let you see my ultimate skill. Chanane's face was burning. He couldn't beat a young man, which made him go crazy. Fire devours the world. Chunan twisted his body, which was unbelievably soft. Under the astonished gazes of everyone, the spirit energy in his body condensed into a huge serpent. It was over 100 feet long, and its entire body was made of spirit energy. The huge red serpent covered Chunan, and its tail continuously slapped the ground, forming a sea of fire and heat waves. With a twist of his body, Chunan charged out with the red serpent. The serpent's head was the size of a house, and it had a fan-shaped mouth that bit towards Lin Xian. Wind thunder cut. Lin Xian held the large sword in a reverse grip and forcefully chopped up, and his body soared high into the air. Everywhere it passed, it brought along a dazzling sword light. The golden sword light flashed, and it seemed to cut open the air. It was fast to the extreme. Everyone only saw the sword light flash, and Lin Xian arrived before Chunan. The icy cold sword edge was pressed against Chunan's neck, and the huge red serpent was cut into two and disappeared in the air. Chunan didn't dare move. His body maintained a strange posture, and a layer of goosebumps appeared on his neck. He was sure that if he dared to move now, his head would be separated from his body. I've lost. Chunan's face was pale and his voice was weak. Lin Xian put away his long sword, and in a flash, he appeared in front of Chunan. He looked up at the five-colored pill in midair, and a strong sword intent burst forth from his body. The sword intent was monstrous, and it pierced through heaven and earth as if it wanted to tear everything apart. What kind of power is this? Could it be that he didn't use his full strength just now? God, what kind of monster is he? The group of people's expressions changed drastically, and they all retreated. Chunan smiled bitterly as he retreated. He realized that his loss was not unjustified. Against such a freak, perhaps only Wang Jianxing and the others could defeat him. Only 4 figures were left in the field, and they could withstand Lin Xian's sword intent. Is this sword intent? Wang Jianxing felt the piercing cold in the air, and he was excited, but if you want to take away the pill, this is not enough. The aura on his body changed drastically, and it was as if there was a meteor behind him. Sword intent against sword force. Although sword force was not as strong as sword intent, Wang Jianxing's cultivation was far superior to Lin Xian's, so the two of them were on par. On the side, Yuan Fei's body seemed to have doubled in size, and his muscles were exposed, making him look like a ferocious beast. The other two also used their body defenses to resist the sword intent. Lin Xian looked at the 4 of them and he was fearless. He did not want to defeat the 4 of them, but he wanted to take away the pill. He knew this very well. It was difficult to defeat the 4 of them, at least with his current cultivation it was impossible. However, if the 4 of them managed to snatch the pill and escape, there was still a high chance of success. His battle intent was high, and his sword intent surged. He looked like he wanted to fight, but he secretly used his soul power to investigate and plan his escape route. Wine Lord, I'll leave the array to you, Lin Xian said. Don't worry, I'll make sure you'll be fine, Wine Lord replied. The surrounding people watched anxiously. This might be an earth-shattering battle, and they had to watch carefully. Maybe they could get some inspiration. In the next moment, Lin Xian moved. He waved his long sword and slashed out a few times. Each slash carried a huge amount of sword qi, and it was like a ferocious dragon coming out of the sea. Chapter 130. Sword qi filled the sky and slashed towards the 4 of them. Arrogant. You're courting death. The four of them attacked and dispersed the sword qi. Then they rushed towards Lin Xian. Everyone thought that Lin Xian was too arrogant. It was impossible for him to fight one against four, two of whom were the chief disciples of the sect. Lin Xian did not take the attack head-on. His body swayed and he used the power of wind and thunder to leave countless shadows on the ground. Every one of them looked real, and no one could tell which one was real. Child's play. Wang Jianqing sneered and swung his sword. Like a shooting star, dozens of sword qi quickly attacked Lin Xian. Poof! 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 Those shadows were slashed one by one and turned into green smoke. There were fewer and fewer shadows in the field. The four of them gradually surrounded the remaining shadows. Like I said, no one can resist the joint attack of the four of them. Many martial artists sneered and looked like they were watching a show. However, when the last shadow disappeared, Lin Xian's real body had yet to appear. Wang Jianqing and the other three's faces darkened. Then they looked up. In the air, Lin Xian was like a big bird. Wind blew under his feet, and he was already in front of the five-color elixir. Damn it, we were fooled by him. Yuan Fei's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he stared at Lin Xian. Lin Xian grabbed the five-color elixir. With a flip of his palm, he gave it to Wine Lord. Then, his body swayed and he fled into the distance. Chase him, we can't let him escape. Wang Jianqing, Yuan Fei, and the other three locked onto Lin Xian and chased after him desperately. It was only then that the crowd realized that Lin Xian did not want to fight with the four of them. His goal was only the five-color elixir. However, Lin Xian's aura was too strong. No matter who saw it, they thought that he would fight. Lin Xian, stop right there if you have the guts. Do you dare to fight one-on-one? Wang Jianqing and Yuan Fei were so angry that they wanted to tear him apart. Haha. Lin Xian laughed heartily. You don't have to provoke me. There's still plenty of time in the future. When the time comes, I'll be able to beat you down with one hand. Arrogant. This is infuriating. The four of them cried out in anger, but there was nothing they could do. After entering the medicinal garden's array formation, their speed slowed down, while Lin Xian sped up. Damn it, how can he be so fast? Could it be that he knows about formations? The four of them were puzzled and could not understand. They could only grind their teeth. Seeing this, Lin Xian slowed down and began to stroll around the garden. From time to time, he would reach out and pluck the spiritual herbs. With Wine Lord's guidance, every time Lin Xian made a move, he would pluck precious spiritual herbs. Before long, he had already plucked a dozen or so stalks, while Wang Jianqing and the others could only eat the dust. This won't do. If this goes on, we'll fall into their trap. Wang Jianqing stopped and regained his composure. Not only will we not be able to catch him, but we won't be able to get the spiritual pills in the future either. The other three also stopped. They calmed down and glanced coldly at Lin Xian. Then, without looking back, they ran toward the alchemy room. Just as Lin Xian had said, there was still plenty of time in the future. The four of them were not in a hurry to fight with Lin Xian. Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile. He was not afraid of anyone in a one-on-one fight. Even if the four of them joined forces, he could still win if he went all out. That was because he had the bronze gauntlet and other trump cards. Even if the four of them joined forces, they would not be able to defend against such an attack. After the four of them left, Lin Xian did not leave immediately. He guarded the large medicinal garden and began to cultivate. There were countless spiritual herbs here. In addition to Wine Lord's wine refining skills, it was not inferior to the alchemy room at all. He gave all the spiritual herbs he had plucked to Wine Lord. Then, he sat down cross-legged and began to drink the spiritual wine. The array here was like a natural defense that protected him. Ordinary people who did not understand the array would not be able to enter at all. After drinking a mouthful of spiritual wine, Lin Xian closed his eyes and began to cultivate using the longevity secret art. Lin Xian spent the next 2 days here. Other than cultivating, he also plucked spiritual herbs. His days were very comfortable. In other places of the blood-colored heavenly palace, many disciples found their own opportunities. In a secret room, Murong Qianling was holding a yellowed scroll with excitement in her eyes. In a room not far away, Zhang Jun was holding 2 bottles of pills with a wild smile on his face. Like Lin Xian, he directly swallowed the pills and meditated, digesting them on the spot. Ling Feng also had some gains. Not only did he obtain some cultivation techniques, but he also obtained a few bottles of spiritual spring water. All the disciples of the Ling family could not stop laughing. Outside the trial grounds of blood, the elders of various forces were waiting. Half a month has passed. I wonder how they are doing. Black Heaven Sect's elder Duamis' eyes flashed. With their strength, they should have entered the blood-colored palace long ago. Lotus Glory Sect's great elder stroked his beard and said, "Everything else is easy, but I wonder if they have the chance to obtain the inheritance. It's difficult." The elders of several aristocratic families sighed. Even if they can't obtain the inheritance, it's not bad to be able to advance. The Ling family's elder was proud. Feng Er is already at the second sky of the spiritual sea realm. If he enters the third sky of the spiritual sea realm, he will have the chance to enter the top 100 of the hidden dragon ranking. According to past experiences, advancing to the first sky of the spiritual sea realm is a sure thing. I wonder if they had any other fortuitous encounters? The elders conversed with each other and looked at the seal vortex in front of them from time to time. Only the Wuxia sect's elder was silent. No one knew what he was thinking. The Ling family's elder glanced at Black Heaven sect's elder Duanmu and sneered in his heart. If nothing unexpected happened, the sword disciple you care about is already dead. Daring to offend the Ling family, even if he is a genius of the Black Heaven sect, he will still die. Inside the Blood Heavenly Palace, Lin Xian opened his eyes again. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the first layer of the spiritual sea realm, and would soon reach the middle stage. At that time, he would have the power to fight against a martial artist in the second layer of the spiritual sea realm. Slowly standing up, Lin Xian decided to leave this place. In a short period of time, he couldn't increase his cultivation, and he also wanted to find other fortuitous encounters. Wine Lord used the 5-colored medicinal pill and felt much better, which made Lin Xian very happy. "Hey, there's a little guy waiting for you," Wine Lord said with a smile. Lin Xian raised his head and saw Yuan Fei looking at him coldly from the exit in front of him. "Just nice to stretch my muscles." Lin Xian's expression was calm. His body turned into a flash of lightning and flew out. "Do you dare to fight me?" Yuan Fei's voice trembled, as if metal and stone were clashing. "Why wouldn't I?" Lin Xian was fearless. "Good, you've got guts." Yuan Fei laughed and threw out a punch. The wind blew and the air trembled as if a mountain was crashing down, causing the ground to collapse. Lin Xian slashed out with his sword. Sword chi surrounded him and hit Yuan Fei's fist, making a clanging sound. "So hard." Lin Xian was slightly surprised. Yuan Fei's fist was harder than metal, and normal swords couldn't hurt him at all. No wonder he was the chief disciple. Lin Xian exclaimed, and at the same time, sword intent burst out from his body. The sharp sword chi emitted a golden light. "Take my sword." With one sword strike, the air on both sides flowed backward and attached to the sword chi. This sword was comprehended from the Wind Emperor's sword, and he called it the Wind Fusion style. The air swirled and formed countless wind blades in the air, slashing at Yuan Fei along with the sword chi. "Golden body release," Yuan Fei shouted, and a golden color appeared on the surface of his body, blooming with light. Soon he turned into a golden body. Under the sunlight he shone with a dazzling golden light, like a sun. Chapter 131. Sword chi that was close to 30 meters long rushed towards Yuan Fei like a dragon. Yuan Fei didn't dodge. Instead, he used golden body arts to block the sword light. Rumble. Sword chi surged and slashed onto Yuan Fei's body with great force. In an instant, there was a loud rumble. Within a radius of 30 meters, energy overflowed and wild winds blew. The nearby disciples frantically retreated, afraid that they would be caught in the terrifying storm. So terrifying. This guy's strength is almost on par with the chief disciple. Some martial artists' voices trembled. In the distance, Wang Jianxing looked at the sword. His eyes flickered and his battle-intent soared. When the light disappeared, the crowd could see the situation clearly. The ground was split open, and there was a terrifying crack that extended into the distance. Yuan Fei, who was in the center, stood proudly like a golden giant. "He's fine." The nearby disciple's eyes almost popped out. Is he still human? He took a hit and he's fine. Golden Body Arts is a low-level spirit class martial art. Rumor has it that when practiced to a high level, it can achieve perfect defense and ignore all attacks. In the crowd, a few high-level disciples whispered as they looked at Yuan Fei with a trace of fear. If two people fought and one of them ignored the attack, it could be said that they were in an invincible position. Fighting with such a person, there was almost no chance of winning. At most, it would be a draw. Yuan Fei was 20 meters tall and looked like he was cast in gold. His entire body was shining with light. He looked at Lin Xian and said proudly, "What else do you have? Use it. You can't break my defense." Lin Xian's eyes flashed as he used purple spirit eyes to observe. He found that Yuan Fei's body was as hard as gold. His defense was insane, but his insides were the same as a normal person's. Looks like he hasn't practiced to a high level, or Golden Body Arts can't refine his body. Lin Xian thought. Lin Xian didn't hesitate anymore. His body flashed and rushed towards Yuan Fei. Under his sword there was no absolute defense. Everything could be cut open. Like lightning and wind, Lin Xian's speed was extremely fast. Even a martial artist at the second sky of spiritual ocean realm might not be able to catch up with him. After a few flashes, he arrived in front of Yuan Fei. The red flame sword in his hand emitted a cold sword light. Sword intent surged and sword light danced. The long sword in Lin Xian's hand was like a gust of wind and lightning, thrusting out rapidly. Streaks of blazing sword light slashed towards Yuan Fei. The attack contained within could easily shatter a martial artist in the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm. Clang! 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 The sound of metal rang out, and the air buzzed. Everyone's faces turned pale, and they kept retreating. Yuan Fei used his bare hands to block the longsword. Each of his attacks had the power to split mountains. The two of them fought at high speed, and the sky was filled with afterimages. So fast! So strong! Everyone was shocked. This kind of battle had already surpassed the normal first sky of the spiritual ocean realm, and could even be compared with the second sky of the spiritual ocean realm. Yuan Fei is a genius on the hidden dragon rank. Who is that guy? Is he a genius from the rising star? Looks like he's the rumored sword intent genius of the Black Heaven sect. Lin Xian. Sword intent? Did someone really comprehend it? No wonder he's so strong. While everyone was discussing, Lin Xian and Wang Jian attacked quickly. Close to 100 moves had already passed. As expected of the chief disciple. Although I didn't intentionally activate the sword intent, this kind of attack isn't something normal people can block. Lin Xian exclaimed in his heart. But there are still flaws. A smile appeared on his lips. Your defense is strong, but it can't stop me. Lin Xian laughed. The light on the longsword in his hand faded, and the blade appeared. What's going on? Where's his sword intent? Many people didn't understand. Only Wang Jianqing frowned. The sword light didn't disappear, but condensed into a line and gathered on the blade. This Lin Xian, what exquisite control! Pung! Lin Xian swung the red flame sword, and smashed it directly, as if a mountain fell from the sky. Sun-opening fist. Yuan Fei not only had a strong defense, but his strength was even more terrifying. His fist was like a sun, shining in all directions and blasted towards Lin Xian. Clang! Clang! Sparks flew in all directions, like raging waves crashing on the shore, deafening the ears. Every strike shook the ground, and that kind of power made people's hearts palpitate. What? Yuan Fei is retreating? Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. If Lin Xian had defeated Yuan Fei with a peerless sword technique, they could still accept it. But now Lin Xian had directly competed with Yuan Fei in strength, and even won. This was unbelievable. Impossible. Yuan Fei's arm was numb, and his heart was in turmoil. His defense and strength were unmatched in the younger generation, but now he was being suppressed. Moreover, the person suppressing him was a sword cultivator. In the distance, Wang Jianqing also had a strange expression. He didn't see the sword intent that he expected, but he saw a scene that surprised him. Based on his experience, he could see that Lin Xian's every strike was aimed at the same place, and there was no difference. Even Yuan Fei couldn't withstand such a crazy attack. Open! Yuan Fei was furious. He felt that Lin Xian was provoking him. Sun-splitting sky. He punched out with both fists, and the terrifying power seemed to have doubled. Lin Xian was pushed back, and his body floated backward like duckweed. Looks like Yuan Fei is angry. Someone exclaimed. I knew it. No one can suppress Yuan Fei. Lin Xian is in danger. Yuan Fei defeated the sword genius Wang Jianxing, and he has a special ability to suppress sword techniques. Indeed, ordinary sword cultivators' skills were all in the sword, and their attacks were incomparably fierce, and focused on killing with one strike. However, when facing a martial artist with strong defense like Yuan Fei, sword cultivators would often lose their advantage and become passive. Would Lin Xian follow in Wang Jianxing's footsteps? Everyone focused, waiting for the answer. Let's end this, Lin Xian said in a low voice. The battle just now made him understand that without using sword intent, his strength was on par with the chief disciple. Let's test sword intent again. His eyes became deep, and the aura on his body became fierce again, as if a peerless divine sword had been unsheathed. A trace of sword intent gushed out, as if it was 10,000 years old ice, making people's hearts tremble. So cold. What's going on? I can't move my body. Shay. Many people turned pale with fright. The chill was bone-chilling, as if there was a heavenly sword hanging above their heads. It's here, sword intent. Wang Jianxing's eyes were burning, and he held the long sword at his waist tightly. There, his 7-star sword was trembling slightly, as if it was out of control. Yuan Fei's expression was solemn. He felt an unprecedented danger, and his body instinctively defended, shining with golden light. Is this sword intent? I'd like to experience it. Yuan Fei laughed, and his body rushed out like lightning. He raised his hand and swung his sword. Although it was a simple movement, it condensed all of Lin Xian's strength. At this moment, his essence, energy, and spirit had reached an unprecedented height, perfectly fusing together. Wind fusion style. The green sword shadow flashed and disappeared in a flash, as if it had merged with the wind. There was no earth-shattering sound, nor was there a dazzling light. This wind fusion style, which contained sword intent, was completely different from the one he had just used. However, its power was stronger. Yuan Fei's pupils constricted, and he suddenly fell. He activated his strongest defense, and his body was like a golden furnace. At that moment he dared to feel the aura of death. This aura made his heart tremble. Without a sound, a sword radiance flew out of the wind and slashed his body. Poof! The blade of the sword slashed, and bright red blood splattered, rolling in the air. Chapter 132. That slash seemed to have severed everyone's minds. Wang Jianxing's body stiffened and his hand that was holding the sword trembled. Cold sweat trickled down his face. There was no way he could have dodged that slash. The scariest thing was that he did not even see the slash's trajectory clearly. Drip. Drip. Bright red blood splattered on the limestone floor. Yuan Fei's face was pale. There was a wound on his chest that extended from his left shoulder to his abdomen. He looked at Lin Xian in horror, only to find that the latter had turned around and walked away expressionlessly. Lin Xian. Yuan Fei clenched his fists and growled. Ever since he defeated Wang Jianxing, he had looked down on sword cultivators. He thought that any sword cultivator who went against him would lose without a doubt. However, Lin Xian's slash had shown him how terrifying sword cultivators were. If it had been a battle of life and death, he would have died by now. After a long while, the martial artists nearby finally reacted. Many of them were excited. Too amazing. I wonder if he can enter the top 100 of the Hidden Dragon Roll? Many of the disciples were excited. If Yunzhou could have such a genius, they would be proud too. Top 100? Wang Jianxing muttered. No one knew what he was thinking in the next few days. More and more people entered the blood-colored palace and began to search for treasures. There were people everywhere, but only a few managed to obtain treasures. As time passed, the crowd gradually came to the depths of the palace. The surrounding atmosphere became oppressive, as if there was an invisible force that shrouded the area. Although the atmosphere was much heavier, the treasures were also more precious. All kinds of rare treasures appeared, making it difficult for the crowd to resist. Lin Xian kept running, feeling more and more shocked. The palace was huge. Not only were there all kinds of buildings, but there were also some caves and secret rooms. It was like a small world. Of course, the most intense place was the main hall. There were 3 dazzling treasures that attracted everyone's attention. Around the 3 treasures, there were colorful seals that kept the crowd outside. Almost 70% of the disciples were gathered here. Their eyes were burning with excitement as if they had seen a beauty. Lin Xian retracted his aura and blended into the crowd, silently observing. He realized that Murong Qianling, Zhang Jun, Xie Changfeng, and the others were not here. Instead, Yuan Fei, Wan Jianxing, and some people from the 4 great clans were here. Among them, he found the disciples of the Ling family. 4 of them were gathered together with fanatical expressions on their faces. Lin Xian sneered in his heart. Of the 10 people from the Ling clan who came in, half of them had died at his hands. Of course, this was the result of their own actions. If you want to kill someone, you have to be prepared to be killed. He did not attack immediately. Instead, he waited quietly in the crowd. The 3 treasures in the sky were constantly floating, emitting incomparable rays of light. Lin Xian activated his purple spirit eyes and observed carefully. Then disappointment appeared in his eyes. Among the 3 treasures there were no swords but other weapons. His crimson flame sword was essentially a support-type weapon. Wine Lord had once told him that the crimson flame sword's effects were reflected in cultivation and formations. During cultivation, he had already experienced 10 times the gravity, which benefited him greatly. As for the others, he would have to wait for his cultivation to increase before he could use them. What he lacked now was a good offensive sword. Among the 3 treasures, there was a light purple armor with complicated patterns on it. The one on the left was a long spear. Its entire body was red, and the spearhead was suffused with cold light. It was like a dragon from the abyss, about to soar into the sky. On the right was a long blade. Its beautiful arc was like a crescent moon, mesmerizing people. I wonder what grade these 3 treasures are? Lin Xian was curious. Although there was no long sword, if he could get one, the benefits would undoubtedly be huge. Regardless of whether it was an exchange or an auction, he would be able to obtain a considerable amount of wealth. Wine Lord squinted his eyes and said indifferently, all 3 of them are profound grade treasures. They are completely sufficient for the Sea of Soul realm. Treasures were divided into 5 ranks: human, profound, spirit, earth, and heaven. Each rank was further divided into 3 grades: high, medium, and low. Among them, the earth and heaven grades were almost impossible to find, as if they only existed in legends. At present, the highest grade treasures were spirit grade treasures. As long as it was a treasure of a sect, it would be difficult for ordinary people to obtain it. Like this mid-profound grade treasure, if placed outside, even some elders would be tempted. The light purple armor in the middle is the highest grade. It is a mid-profound grade treasure. The other 2 are low-profound grade treasures. Wine Lord said, "How does the purple armor compare to the one I'm wearing?" Lin Xian asked. "The grade of yours is obviously higher, and the technique is also better. Its weakness is that it breaks too quickly, and most of its functions are missing. As for the purple armor in the air, although the material and technique are ordinary, it is still in perfect condition. In general, they are about the same." Wine Lord analyzed. Lin Xian's eyes blossomed with an orange light. He could see that the 3 treasures had strange runes on them. He curiously asked, "Are those patterns inscriptions?" "Barely." Wine Lord curled his lips, obviously disdainful. "Strictly speaking, they are still a bit away from a first-grade inscription." Lin Xian scratched his head. It seemed that inscription masters were more powerful than he had imagined. Which one should I grab? Lin Xian was worried. If others knew what he was thinking, they would probably spit out a mouthful of blood. This was too infuriating. With so many masters present, no one could guarantee that they would be able to obtain one, but he was actually worried about which one to grab. This was a blatant gap between them. Forget it. Of the 3 treasures, only the long saber is pleasing to the eye. I'll take that one. Lin Xian decided, and began to rub his palms together. Lin Xian's actions did not attract any attention. In the hall, there were many people who were doing the same thing. This kind of treasure, if they could grab one, they would be rich. Finally, someone could not bear it any longer and launched an attack on the seal. The attack crashed into the seal, causing layers of ripples. In the next moment, a violent aura spread out. The three treasures shot into the sky, trembling incessantly. As if enraged by the attack, the three treasures began to display their might, and a terrifying attack came from above. The purple armor in the middle emitted a hazy shadow that gradually grew larger, as if it wanted to hold up everything. The spear on the left emitted thousands of spear lights, each as thick as a water tank. It was as if countless flood dragons were soaring in the sky, and the momentum was terrifying. The long saber on the right faintly emitted a tiger's roar, and the pressure constantly attacked everyone's soul. Some of the weaker martial artists vomited blood and retreated. The three treasures emitted a shocking power, and as they crashed into the seal, a cracking sound rang out. Finally, the broken seal could not withstand the power and broke apart. The three treasures were completely exposed in front of everyone. Chapter 133. The three artifacts ignited the atmosphere in the hall as countless figures rushed up. Lin Xian's figure flickered as he shuttled through the crowd like a wisp of smoke. He spread out his soul power and sensed the situation around him. The three artifacts floated in the air, each attracting the same amount of people. However, if one looked closely, they would notice that there were more martial artists rushing toward the long blade. Lin Xian's eyes flickered as he saw the Ling family members surrounding the long blade. Ling Feng even released a powerful aura, intimidating everyone. Qi. In the chaos there was a hurried sound as a sharp aura rushed toward Lin Xian's back. Humph! Lin Xian sneered. With his soul power he had already noticed this change. A sword qi rushed out from his body and cut the incoming hidden weapon in half. Several figures quickly dispersed from the crowd. These people all had their gazes fixed on Lin Xian. In their eyes, although the blade in the air was valuable, there were too many people fighting for it. It would be better to rob some martial artists, because among them there were people who saw Lin Xian pick dozens of spirit herbs, each of which was worth a lot. Seeing that their attack had failed, several people concealed themselves and were about to leave. However, Lin Xian would not give them the chance. With his soul power, these people were like fireflies in the dark, clearly distinguishable. Puff! Puff! He flicked out a few sword qi and merged them into the wind. Then he jumped and rushed toward the long blade. Several muffled groans were heard as the several people who attacked were all stabbed in the forehead and died on the ground. This scene was not the only one, so it did not attract the attention of the crowd. Because more people were injured and retreating, the scene was a mess. Clear the area. This was the thought of all the experts. Otherwise, if it was too chaotic, too many people would die, and there would be no end to it. Wang! 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 Several powerful auras rushed into the sky and spread out. Those under the Sea of Soul Realm retreat. All the martial artists issued the order. Moreover, these people joined hands to form an unparalleled pressure, driving away all the weaker martial artists. The rest were all Sea of Soul Realm martial artists, and there were more than 10 human figures in front of each artifact. Among these people, there were old warriors who had already reached the spiritual sea realm, and there were also new warriors who had obtained opportunities here. In short, these people were all very powerful. On Lin Xian's side, the 4 Ling family disciples had joined forces and became the largest force. The others were scattered and wary of each other. Ling Feng and the others smiled disdainfully when they saw Lin Xian. Everyone, I think it's better to get rid of these small fries. Ling Feng's voice was cold as he looked at Lin Xian. He didn't know that Lin Xian had already killed several Ling clan disciples, nor did he know about Lin Xian's performance in the herb garden. Thus he still had that arrogant look on his face. The remaining warriors all had different expressions on their faces. A few of them had seen Lin Xian's methods, so they didn't dare to go against him even if they were beaten to death. However, there were also people who walked out and prepared to make a move on Lin Xian. No one explained. In this kind of situation, it was better to have as few people as possible. Do you want to leave on your own? Or do you want me to throw you out? The newcomer was a late-stage first-layer spiritual sea realm martial artist, holding a saber in his hand. Get lost. Lin Xian didn't waste words. His powerful aura burst forth, and he sent the newcomer flying with one strike. The sword light was bright, and the cold light illuminated the surroundings. The Ling family disciples' expressions changed drastically, and they looked at Lin Xian in shock. They hadn't seen him for a few days, and they didn't expect their enemy to become so powerful, already surpassing them. Ling Feng's eyes were cold. Although he was surprised, he didn't care too much. He knew that everyone had their own fortuitous encounters, and he believed that his was better than Lin Xian's. "You guys stop him, I'll go get the treasure," Ling Feng ordered. With a leap, Ling Feng rushed up, and the others also made their moves. The 3 Ling family disciples rushed up. Among them, Ling Xiao was at the late stage first layer spiritual sea realm, and the other 2 were at the middle stage first layer. The 3 of them joined forces and blocked the others with great momentum. Spirit power surged, sweeping in all directions. The scene was very chaotic. Lin Xian's body burst forth with powerful sword intent, splitting everyone apart as he leaped into the air. Ling Feng was fighting against the treasured weapon, but he noticed that Lin Xian had rushed up. A bunch of trash. He was furious. One hand grabbed the long saber treasured weapon, while the other hand descended. 2 mountain peaks materialized as if they were real mountains. They pressed down and enveloped Lin Xian. Hurricane style. Lin Xian had comprehended many moves from the Wind Emperor's sword, and now he used them one by one. With a slash of the sword, wild winds danced in the sky, forming a green hurricane that crashed into the mountain's shadow. Rumble. The 2 collided fiercely like a bolt from the blue. Fierce energy wreaked havoc in the air, sweeping in all directions. The martial artists on the ground dodged one after another. The overflowing sword chi struck the ground, creating terrifying cracks. It was frightening. With a slash of the sword, Lin Xian advanced again. Ling Feng's face was gloomy. Lin Xian's strength was stronger than he had imagined. However, he would not allow anyone to snatch the long saber treasured weapon. "Brat, you're courting death." Ling Feng was furious. He pulled out the long saber at his waist and slashed. From his point of view, Lin Xian was obviously going against him by trying to snatch the saber treasured weapon even though he was using a sword. The saber chi was like a waterfall, slashing towards Lin Xian like the Milky Way. Hurricane slash. Lin Xian merged the hurricane style with the gale sword art. With a slash of his sword, 3 green torrents rolled out, shattering the saber chi. Wind thunder cut. Lin Xian went against the flow. The green sword chi was wrapped in golden lightning. It was incomparably sharp as it slashed towards Ling Feng. Triple mountain suppressing hand. Ling Feng held the saber in his right hand and pushed out with his left. 3 giant mountain shadows pressed down. Bang! Bang! There was an explosion sound in the air. Water-like ripples spread out, and the terrifying energy spread out continuously. Lin Xian's expression changed slightly. Ling Feng's strength was very strong, already at the late stage of the 2nd layer of the spiritual ocean realm. That surging spirit power made his heart palpitate. Phantom thunder step. His body kept jumping, flashing left and right, rapidly changing his position. After comprehending the Wind Emperor's sword, Lin Xian's understanding of the wind was even deeper. His current speed could be said to be extremely fast. Rushing out of the range of the mountain's pressure, the sword intent in his body kept rising, and the red flame sword appeared in his hand. Wind blending style. It was a silent and deadly strike. The bright sword chi blended into the wind. It was barely visible, as if it had not been slashed out. Ling Feng was a martial artist at the late stage of the 2nd layer of the spiritual ocean realm after all. His experience and alertness were not ordinary. His heart beat violently, and he felt a fatal danger in front of his chest. Not good. Ling Feng quickly dodged, temporarily giving up on the treasured weapon. His body moved horizontally, appearing a few dozen feet away. Pooh! The air where he was standing suddenly rippled, and a long rainbow slashed out, cutting in all directions. Although Ling Feng had moved horizontally, this sword chi was too long and contained a supreme sword intent. In the end, it still cut him. The clothes in front of his chest were torn, and he retreated a dozen meters before stopping. Breathing heavily, Ling Feng's eyes burned with anger. If it weren't for his life-saving armor, this attack would have been enough to seriously injure him. Chapter 134. Lin Xian's sword had already threatened his life. If it weren't for his armor, he would have been seriously injured. He had always regarded Lin Xian as an ant, but now this ant could already hurt him. Tearing off his clothes, Ling Feng revealed the armor underneath. He was ready to settle the score with Lin Xian, but found that Lin Xian wasn't even looking at him, but was trying his best to subdue the saber-type artifact. This gave him the urge to vomit blood. Ling Feng was furious, and the aura on his body exploded like a flood. Holding the saber in his right hand and using the mountain-suppressing hand with his left hand, he rushed forward with a spirit armor around his body. Boom! The saber light crisscrossed, and the mountain pressed down. Ling Feng showed his powerful strength and attacked Lin Xian. Whoosh! Lin Xian retreated quickly, leaving the saber-type artifact. His long sword shook as he fought fiercely with Ling Feng. The two exchanged dozens of moves, and the momentum shook the sky. It was hard to tell who would win. The surrounding people were all shocked. They knew how powerful Ling Feng was. With the cultivation of the second sky of the spiritual ocean tier, he could be considered a top fighter. However, Lin Xian's performance was out of everyone's expectations. With the cultivation of the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he could fight evenly with Ling Feng. This kind of battle power was shocking. As expected of someone who comprehended sword intent, the few people retreated in fear. The energy was about to reach them. Brother Feng will help you. 3 Ling family martial artists rushed forward together, ready to take down Lin Xian, their biggest enemy. Get lost. Lin Xian stabbed the illusory mountain with his sword, and the sharp sword intent pushed Ling Feng back. At the same time, he turned his head and roared. The sound waves spread out like water ripples, rushing towards the 3 who rushed over. The sound wave was like a huge wave drowning the 3. Pooh! 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 The 3 of them kept retreating, spitting out blood. Mad Lion Roar? Ling Feng's face turned ugly. How do you know Mad Lion Roar? What a joke! Lin Xian said disdainfully. This is Thunder Sound Wave. What kind of lion's roar is this? It's so unpleasant to hear. Naturally, he wouldn't admit that he was the one who killed the Ling clan's people. After all, there were too many people here. If word got out, he would be hunted down by the Ling clan's elders. This was not what he wanted. Ling Feng was suspicious and his face was ashen. Other than the 4 of them, no one else from the Ling family had appeared. Could it be that he killed everyone? Although Ling Feng didn't believe it, the current situation forced him to believe it. No matter what, you're going to die. Ling Feng's face was gloomy. He couldn't do anything to Lin Xian at the moment, but he still had a trump card. You should be proud to die here. An octagonal stone appeared in his hand. In the middle of the stone there was a vivid drawing of a mountain peak. The moment the stone was taken out, the atmosphere in the hall became somewhat stifling. It was as if a huge mountain was pressing down on everyone's hearts. Be careful, those are runes. Wine Lord warned. Lin Xian's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect Ling Feng to have such an item. This was a real rune, different from the talisman papers he had seen before. When the 3 warriors of the Ling clan saw Ling Feng take out the stone, they calmed down. Great, with the talisman treasure, this brat is dead meat. That's right, once the talisman treasure is taken out, no one can survive. However, it's too easy for him to die at the talisman treasure's hands. We should grind his bones and scatter his ashes, and let him taste all the poisons in the world. The disciples of the Ling clan retreated into the distance with complacent faces and sneered. The surrounding warriors also changed their expressions and left the place as if they were fleeing. Although they hadn't seen the power of the talisman treasure, they had heard of the legends of the talisman treasure countless times. Even the warriors who were fighting for the 2 items carefully avoided them and moved to another battlefield. Kneel down and repent, and I might leave your corpse intact. Ling Feng held the talisman treasure and laughed arrogantly. You. Lin Xian sneered. If you kneel down obediently, I might consider sparing your life. How dare you? Insolent. The disciples of the Ling clan shouted angrily and then snorted. Reckless fool. The power of the talisman treasure is unimaginable. Killing you is as easy as squashing an ant. That's right, if you beg for mercy now and become a slave of the Ling clan, you can live. The few of them made a big fuss and were extremely arrogant. Ling Feng had a playful look on his face. He wanted to enjoy Lin Xian's frightened expression. He wanted to make the genius who comprehended sword essence kneel at his feet. However, he was destined to be disappointed. Lin Xian looked at him with disdain as if he was looking at an idiot. So this is what you're relying on? Since you said it was so powerful, take it out and try. The surrounding warriors all changed their expressions. Lin Xian's reaction was too abnormal. Normally, when warriors saw the talisman treasure, they would either beg for mercy or run away. Who would be like Lin Xian, who looked down on it so mercilessly? Could it be that Lin Xian has a backup plan? Many people guessed. Ling Feng gnashed his teeth in hatred. This kind of talisman treasure would be damaged after each use. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he did not want to use it. He originally only wanted to intimidate Lin Xian and make him submit obediently. Who knew that the other party was not afraid at all and had an indifferent look on his face? If you're not going to make a move, I'm going to. Lin Xian slashed out with his long sword and hit the saber treasure, creating a clanging sound. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Ling Feng's face was ruthless. After killing Lin Xian, he would obtain the treasured weapon. In this way, he would not lose out. Channeling his spiritual energy into the talisman treasure, Ling Feng's face turned serious. Although the talisman treasure was powerful, it consumed a shocking amount of spiritual energy. With his cultivation, he could only use it 3 times. On top of the octagonal stone, the black mountain peak began to glow. A monstrous pressure was emitted, as if it was going to collapse the void. The surrounding warriors retreated again and again. This power caused their hearts to palpitate. Lin Xian also looked serious. He secretly held the bronze gauntlet, ready to attack at any time. Die! Ling Feng's face was filled with madness as he poured all of his spiritual energy into the talisman treasure. A black mountain peak floated out and gradually became bigger in the air. In the end, it became dozens of feet tall and carried a terrifying aura. Boom! The void trembled as if it was going to collapse. The black mountain peak fell mercilessly, enveloping Lin Xian. Die! The Ling family disciple laughed wildly. The surrounding warriors felt that it was a pity. A genius who comprehended sword intent was going to fall just like that. No! An anxious shout came from afar as several figures rushed over from afar. However, everything was too late. The Black Mountain Peak was less than 10 meters away from Lin Xian. The ground that was enveloped by it had caved in. Lin Xian's sword intent was overflowing and resonating as it resisted the pressure. He was not afraid at all. With the bronze gauntlet and ancient armor, he was confident that he could escape. Moreover, he was not in a hurry to use them. The pressure produced by the mountain peak was just enough to train him and help him break through. His cultivation had temporarily reached a peak and needed stimulation to break through. The pressure in front of him was the best motivation. Ah! Lin Xian's whole body glowed as he tried his best to resist. Haha! Don't struggle, no one can escape. Ling Feng saw Lin Xian's appearance and laughed crazily. Who asked you to go against the Ling family? Die! No one will offend the Ling family for a dead genius, so even if you die, no one will avenge you. Junior brother Lin, run! A voice came from afar, extremely anxious. Lin Xian could no longer hear the voices outside. He used the art of long life to the limit and finally broke through to the middle stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm. Broke through? But it's useless. The Ling family disciple was insolent. You'll still die. The surrounding warriors were regretful, but the distant figure had already arrived nearby. Mu Rong Qianling anxiously roared. Your Ling family actually dared to make a move. The Black Sky Sect will not let you off. The Black Mountain Peak was already above his head and was about to crush Lin Xian. Mu Rong Qianling closed her eyes as tears fell from her eyes. At this moment, Lin Xian took out the bronze gauntlet. Chapter 135. Just when everyone thought that Lin Xian had no hope, a sudden change occurred. Green light like the moon enveloped the surroundings, and a terrifying energy surged out. Boom! As if the world was about to be destroyed, space exploded, and the entire hall shook incessantly. Seals lit up one after another, forming a defensive barrier that maintained the hall from destruction. Countless figures were blown away by the violent wind, rolling in all directions. After a long time, the hall regained its calm. Apart from the 3 artifacts in the sky that were unaffected, everyone else had been affected. Many martial artists were injured, but most of them were shaken to the core. This method was too terrifying. It could kill a group of Sea of Soul Realm martial artists with one blow. Everyone looked at the center of the hall, and then they were stunned like stone statues. In the center of the hall, Lin Xian's black hair fluttered in the wind. He wore an ancient armor that emitted rays of light that wrapped around his body. On his left hand there was a bronze gauntlet. Terrifying energy waves were emitted from it, and every trace of it made people's hearts tremble. A large hole several meters wide appeared on the black mountain peak, and the entire mountain peak was pierced through. In the end, the black mountain peak gradually disappeared, and a crack appeared on the octagonal stone that Ling Feng was on. It was very eye-catching. "Impossible, this is impossible!" Ling Feng yelled like a mad dog. Lin Xian was already suppressed, so how could he still resist? Moreover, his talisman artifact was destroyed. The other 3 Ling family disciples were so scared that they trembled, and didn't dare to look at Lin Xian. The surrounding people had strange expressions as they looked at the youth in the center of the hall with some fear. I didn't expect him to also have a talisman artifact. Some martial artists' hearts burned as they stared at Lin Xian's left hand. However, no one dared to act rashly, and no one dared to provoke Lin Xian at this time. Lin Xian's face was a bit pale. He didn't feel good from the previous blow, and his left hand was still numb. However, he didn't show any abnormalities. Looking up at the saber-shaped artifact in the sky, Lin Xian slowly walked over. He raised his hand and shot out a sword light. He began to use his sword intent to suppress the artifact. Seeing Lin Xian brazenly subdue a prized artifact, everyone's hearts tightened and they subconsciously rushed forward. Lin Xian coldly turned around and swept his gaze across the crowd. It was as if a sharp sword aura had passed by. Everyone felt a chill run down their backs and stopped in their tracks. With just a glance, everyone stopped in their tracks. No one could do such a thing. Ling Feng stood to the side, still in a state of great shock. It was not until Lin Xian subdued the saber-type artifact that he came to his senses. However, it was all too late. Lin Xian, who possessed a prized artifact, was even more powerful. It was likely that no one would be his match. "Junior brother Lin, you're alright?" "That's great." Murong Qinling walked up to Qinling, her face filled with joy. Lin Xian's expression relaxed, and he nodded with a smile. He then inquired about the other party's situation. Whoosh! Whoosh! Another few silhouettes rushed over at a frightening speed. In the blink of an eye, the 2 figures had already stopped in front of everyone. "Senior brother Zheng, senior brother Xia." Many people shouted. The newcomers were Zheng Jun and Xie Changfeng. They saw the traces of fighting nearby and the remaining energy waves in the air, and their expressions changed slightly. Soon, the 2 of them understood what happened and looked at Lin Xian with surprise. Xie Changfeng was only curious, but a cold glint flashed through Zheng Jun's eyes. "Junior brother Lin, you're a sword cultivator and have no use for a saber. How about you give it to Ling Feng?" Zheng Jun said indifferently. "What?" Everyone was stunned as if they couldn't believe their ears. Even Ling Feng had a shocked expression. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and stared at Zheng Jun, the coldness in his heart rising. Zheng Jun already knew that he had a talisman-type artifact and still dared to act like this. He probably had something to rely on. Lin Xian guessed that Zheng Jun probably also had a similar weapon. "Little Xianzi, the brat on the other side has reached the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean realm. You have to be careful," Wine Lord reminded, "and there's also a saber-type artifact in his storage ring." Lin Xian was slightly startled. It seemed that Zheng Jun's luck wasn't small. Not only did he advance, but he also obtained many treasures. Everyone looked at Lin Xian, waiting for his answer. A glimmer of hope rose in Ling Feng's heart. Lin Xian said slowly, "I heard that senior brother Zheng isn't a saber cultivator, so why don't you give away the saber-type artifact in your storage ring? Could it be that you can't bear to?" These words didn't mean much to the others. Most of them thought that he was just spouting nonsense in retaliation. But Zheng Jun's heart trembled, and his pupils contracted. "How does he know about me?" Zheng Jun couldn't understand. Could it be that he saw it? He couldn't figure it out no matter how he thought about it, and could only snort coldly, "What a joke, how could I have a saber-type artifact?" Zhang Jun's face turned cold, and his aura overflowed. An extremely oppressive aura appeared, causing the surrounding martial artists to tremble. Third layer of the spiritual ocean realm. So the martial artists were all shocked. They swallowed their saliva with difficulty, and then looked at Zhang Jun with fear. The gap between each layer of the 7 skies of the spiritual sea realm was huge. Except for geniuses like Lin Xian who comprehended sword intent, there were very few people who could fight above their level. Congratulations to senior brother Zhang Jun for breaking through. Many people congratulated him. Brother Zhang, congratulations. Ling Feng's heart was bitter. Not only did he lose to Lin Xian, but he also damaged his talisman treasure. It could be said that he was extremely unlucky, and the others were constantly improving, leaving him far behind. I think Brother Zhang's ranking on the Hidden Dragon ranking will rise quite a bit. Zhang Jun was previously ranked 97th on the Hidden Dragon ranking. Now that his cultivation had greatly increased, he would probably rise quite a bit. When the congratulations stopped, Mu Rong Qianling said in a deep voice, "Senior Brother Zhang, the treasure was obtained by Lin Xian, so it should belong to him. I hope senior brother won't interfere." Mu Rong Qianling also knew about the conflict between Lin Xian and the senior elder. However, she did not expect Zhang Jun to publicly make things difficult for Lin Xian. No matter what, Lin Xian was a disciple of the Black Sky sect. Moreover, he was a genius who comprehended sword intent. She would not let Lin Xian be threatened. Since junior sister Mu Rong has spoken, then let's forget about this matter. Zhang Jun said magnanimously. Lin Xian felt a wave of nausea. He really wanted to kick Zhang Jun to death. Damn, this is too annoying. Just because your cultivation is high, you can casually bully others? Humph. Lin Xian coldly snorted and put away the treasure. At this time, the battle between the other 2 treasures had also ended. However, the result was unexpected. Among them, the long spear was actually obtained by Shangguan Lu Yun. He held the spear in one hand and stood proudly like a mountain. As for the other armor, it fell into the hands of a mysterious woman. This woman's white clothes were whiter than snow and her face was covered by a veil. She was filled with mystery. Her slender hands grabbed the purple armor, and then her spirit power surged as she put it on. The purple armor trembled slightly and disappeared. Many people had strange expressions. The owners of the 3 treasures were unexpected. Lin Xian and Shangguan Lu Yun were both rising stars. As for the woman in white, no one knew who she was. On the contrary, Ling Feng, Wan Jianxing, Yuan Fei and the other experts that everyone was looking forward to did not obtain a single treasure. Lin Xian nodded slightly at Shangguan Lu Yun and greeted him. Shangguan Lu Yun put away his long spear and turned into a stream of light. Whoosh! He stopped and stood beside Lin Xian. Chapter 136. The white-clothed girl naturally came in with Wuxia sect, but no one recognized her among the crowd. "Miss, where are you from? You look unfamiliar. How did you enter this trial land of blood?" Zhang Jun's cultivation was the highest, so he posed as the leader and asked. The white-clothed girl glanced at him indifferently. Her gaze was as calm as water, without a trace of fluctuation. "You're not qualified to ask me." Her voice was as cold as ice, as if she was born this way. Zhang Jun's face was gloomy. He looked at the beautiful figure in front of him with anger burning in his eyes. After he entered the 3rd sky of the spiritual ocean realm, his strength increased greatly, and he faintly had the momentum of being the number 1 of the younger generation in Yunzhou. However, in a short time there was Lin Xian who ridiculed him and didn't put him in his eyes, and now there was another person who was even more arrogant than him. This was something he couldn't tolerate. "Since you want speak, you must have used some underhanded means to enter." Zhang Jun smiled evilly. "Wait for me to capture you and hand you over to the elders." He wanted to show off his strength, or else it would be hard to intimidate the crowd. Wang! The cultivation of the 3rd sky of the spiritual ocean realm exploded, like a huge wave crashing against the shore. Jingyun palm. He struck out with his palm, forming a huge palm in the air and crashing down. Like a colorful cloud, it overflowed with multicolored light and endless spiritual power. As the palm fell, The air seemed to explode from the pressure, forming sharp ripples that spread out in all directions. Except for Lin Xian, Murong Qianling, and a few others, the other martial artists were all repelled by this power. You overestimate yourself. The white-clothed girl's voice was icy cold. She extended her white finger and lightly tapped the air. Chi! Chi! With one finger, the huge cloud palm melted like ice and snow, spreading out and finally disappearing between heaven and earth. What kind of technique is this? Everyone was stunned. With just one finger, she broke the attack of a martial artist in the third layer of the spiritual ocean realm. Murong Qianling and the others' faces also changed slightly, but Lin Xian's eyes flashed as he used purple spirit pupil to observe. Zheng Jun's face became extremely ugly. Although he didn't use his full strength in this palm, it contained at least 70% of his power. This kind of power was enough to kill anyone present. However, it was broken by the other party with a single finger. Looks like if I don't use my true strength, I won't know how powerful I am. He didn't want to make a fool of himself in front of everyone, so he prepared to attack with all his might. At this moment, a wave of gloomy energy rippled out, bringing with it a trace of vicissitudes of life. Following that, the entire hall began to shake as if it was about to collapse. Everyone was alarmed, not knowing what was going on. Could it be that an inherited martial art had appeared? Someone guessed. Then this idea spread like a flood. Everyone's eyes were abnormally fiery, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They were abnormally excited. Inherited martial arts, that was an existence even more precious than treasures. As long as he could obtain the legacy martial arts, entering the three spirit realms would not be a problem. There's an inherited martial art? Lin Xian was suspicious. His Wind Emperor's one sword was considered an inherited martial art, but it seemed like there was more than one. Whoosh! Whoosh! Many people ran towards the direction of the tremors, wanting to occupy a powerful position. Especially those who did not get a great treasure. They were even more unwilling. Even Zheng Jun gave up on the white-robed woman and turned into a streak of light to escape. Lin Xian also followed behind the crowd, intending to take a look. The white-robed woman seemed to have thought of something, and her expression changed slightly. She quickly ran in that direction. When Lin Xian arrived, the surroundings were already filled with people. When the crowd saw him, they subconsciously opened up a path. The current Lin Xian was a top-notch existence in the eyes of the crowd. No one would look down on him. Lin Xian did not mind. His body swayed and he came to the front. Four huge stone pillars supported the four directions. In the middle was a blood pool, and there was fresh red blood flowing in the pool. An unusually pungent smell of blood wafted over, causing everyone to frown. On the surrounding ground, there were many remains of weapons. Lin Xian looked carefully and realized that the broken weapons were all treasures. What happened here to cause treasures to break and warriors to die? Lin Xian was very curious. At the front, there was a blood-red door that was slightly ajar. An ancient and vicissitude aura came from within, causing everyone to feel excited. The inheritance must be inside. Why aren't you rushing in? Someone shouted in the dark. Immediately, a few warriors rushed forward. However, they stopped after a few steps and kept turning in circles on the spot. This scene stunned the remaining warriors. They did not know what was going on. It's an array. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. Light flashed in his eyes as he kept looking around. Damn it, what happened? Someone was angry and attacked forward. Boom! The long saber was like a rainbow as it struck the blood pool, stirring up thousands of waves. Not good. Zheng Jun and the others' expressions changed. They looked coldly at the person who attacked, wishing they could kill him. That person's body trembled. When he came back to his senses, he was filled with regret. However, it was all too late. In the blood pool, the enchanting blood vibrated and split into 4 streams, wrapping around the 4 stone pillars. In the next moment, a huge blood-red array formed under everyone's feet, suffusing with a strange energy. Everyone felt as if they were in a sea of blood and a mountain of corpses. All they could see were huge white bones. Ka! Ka! With loud sounds, the white bones merged with the blood and fused into zombie-like monsters that charged at the crowd. Kill! Sword chi and spiritual power surged. Everyone fell into a chaotic battle. Let's take a look at that door. Lin Xian's body flashed as he rushed forward. Stay! Two figures appeared and blocked Lin Xian. Zhang Jun and Ling Feng joined forces to block Lin Xian. Zhang Jun's face was filled with killing intent as he stared coldly at Lin Xian. Ling Feng's eyes were filled with malice. He could not wait to tear Lin Xian apart. This time no one can save you. The two of them attacked mercilessly. Terrifying energy shrouded the space. Phantom thunderstep. Lin Xian increased his speed to the maximum and retreated instantly. Boom! An endless sea of fire appeared as if it was a world of lava. Terrifying energy burned in all directions. The mysterious array was activated continuously, forming a sea of fire that shrouded everyone. Zhang Jun and Ling Feng lost sight of Lin Xian. They were surrounded by the sea of fire. Break the array first and obtain the inheritance. Then we'll kill Lin Xian. Zhang Jun said in a low voice. The two of them kept flashing as they tried to escape. However, the array was too mysterious. They were not proficient in it, so they were trapped and lost contact with it. On the other side, Lin Xian was also shrouded in the sea of fire. Humph, insignificant tricks. Wine Lord sneered inside Lin Xian's body. Under Wine Lord's guidance, Lin Xian moved through the sea of fire as if it were flat ground. Let's deal with the hidden danger first. His eyes flashed as he decided to attack Ling Feng and Zhang Jun first. These two had wanted to kill him more than once. If not for his recent increase in strength, he would have been assassinated by them. Whoosh! Chapter 137. Wind Melting Style. This sword seemed to have turned into a breeze, without a trace of sound. Facing the sea of fire, Ling Feng felt the shocking killing intent. The hair on his back stood up and he rolled forward. Chi! Chi! The air rippled and a brilliant sword ray flew out, almost brushing past Ling Feng's body. Although it didn't hit him, some sword chi still touched him, and the shocking sword intent drilled into his body, wantonly destroying. Ling Feng hurriedly channeled the spirit power in his body, suppressing the sword intent and continuously digesting it. You dare to attack me? Ling Feng gritted his teeth. You want to kill me? Do you think I'll let you go? Lin Xian sneered, not giving him a chance, and directly charged over. Ling Feng originally wanted to stall for time, but he didn't expect Lin Xian to be so decisive, directly charging over. At this moment, the sword in Lin Xian's hand seemed to have turned into a dragon, soaring and rolling with a murderous aura. Pung! Pung! Ling Feng countered with the mountain-suppressing hand, continuously bombarding the sword chi. The two collided and the sound spread everywhere with sparks flying everywhere. Roar! Lin Xian rushed forward, directly using Lion's Roar to bombard Ling Feng. He planned to end this quickly. Zhang Jun, Lin Xian is here. Ling Feng lost to Lin Xian earlier, leaving a shadow in his heart. Facing Lin Xian's fierce aura, he had a trace of fear in his heart. This kind of fear originally didn't exist. Ling Feng was a martial artist at the late stage of the second layer of spiritual ocean realm, a few levels higher than Lin Xian. If he fought with all his strength, the result might not be certain. However, when he saw Lin Xian even penetrate Ling family's treasure talisman, fear arose in his heart. And this fear had now become his Achilles heel. The sound waves vibrated, spreading out like water ripples, attacking Ling Feng. Seeing that there was no response, Ling Feng could only fight with all his strength. Roar! It was the same lion's roar, and Ling Feng launched a sound wave attack. The two sound waves collided, extinguishing the surrounding sea of fire. Kid, I'll let you know my power. Ling Feng successfully blocked the sound waves, and a trace of joy appeared on his face. Humph! Lin Xian had long noticed the fear in Ling Feng's heart. He sneered, you can't do it. Even if we use the same martial skill, you're still inferior to me. Mad Lion Roar. Lin Xian roared again. The sound wave contained a soul attack, and it quickly attacked. Haha! How dare you compete with me in sound waves? Ling Feng laughed and became arrogant again. My spirit energy is much more abundant than yours. Just wait for your death. Ling Feng was like a lion, roaring furiously. Wang! Wang! The void trembled, rippling like the surface of a lake. The two sound waves collided and dissolved each other. However, Ling Feng's expression gradually turned ugly. He realized that the sound waves he had sent out were quickly disappearing, but Lin Xian had not changed at all. Impossible! He finally screamed. How did you do it? What answered him was a sound wave. Wang! Ling Feng was enveloped by the sound wave and resisted with all his might. A spirit power armor appeared on his body to resist the energy attack of the sound wave. If it was an ordinary mad lion roar, Ling Feng could still dodge it with his cultivation. However, the sound wave now contained Lin Xian's spirit energy and a trace of sword essence. That strange energy attacked Ling Feng's spirit, causing him to go crazy. He rolled on the ground with his head wrapped. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. His hair was disheveled, and his eyes were full of fear. Lin Xian walked over step by step, and his voice was cold. Your Ling family bullied others and tried to assassinate me time and time again. Do you really think I'm easy to bully? What do you want? Ling Feng's willpower was crushed. His voice trembled. Spare me. I promise I won't provoke you again. Lin Xian did not say anything. Instead, he slowly raised his right hand. Ling Feng appeared to be begging for mercy, but he secretly pulled out his talisman and prepared to attack Lin Xian. However, his actions were all seen by Lin Xian's purple spirit eyes. Go to hell. Triple mountain suppressing hand. Before Ling Feng could pull out his talisman, Lin Xian had already attacked fiercely. 3 illusory mountain peaks appeared and crushed the void like 3 huge mountains. No, impossible. This is my Ling family's unique skill. How can you know it? Ling Feng was completely crazy. He could not even hold the talisman in his hand steadily. Boom! The 3 huge mountains overlapped and weighed thousands of pounds. They pressed down on Ling Feng. Ling Feng's willpower was damaged. He did not have any thoughts of resisting. He screamed and turned into a bloody mist. Lin Xian picked up the mountain talisman on the ground and put it into his storage ring. He looked at the ground and realized that Ling Feng's storage ring was broken. With a sigh, he quickly left the place. Not far away, Zhang Jun's face was gloomy. He had heard Ling Feng's cries since the beginning. However, this damn array was like a maze. It was full of danger and he could not rush out at all. In the end, Ling Feng's voice disappeared. He had a bad feeling. Subconsciously, he did not think that Lin Xian could defeat Ling Feng because the difference in cultivation between the two was too big. However, reality was cruel. He did not expect Lin Xian's strength. Plus, Ling Feng was scared out of his wits and had no power to resist. As he was thinking, the sea of fire in front of him surged and shot up into the sky. Zhang Jun was very alert and retreated quickly. Who? 3 green tornadoes rushed out of the sea of fire and attacked Zhang Jun in a triangular formation. Jingyun hand. Zhang Jun clenched his fist and dispersed the 3 tornadoes. However, the sense of danger in his heart did not disappear. Instead, it grew stronger. Whoosh! He turned around abruptly and a long saber appeared in his hand. He slashed out. The saber flashed with a shocking momentum and shattered the sword ray that suddenly appeared behind him. A silhouette flashed by and soon disappeared. Lin Xian. Zhang Jun's face was extremely gloomy. He did not expect that an ant in the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier would dare to attack him. Who? His body flashed and he slashed out with his saber. The blazing saber ray split open the sea of fire and rushed towards Lin Xian. Pung! Lin Xian used wind thunder cut and slashed at the saber ray. The huge force sent him flying. So terrifying. Lin Xian was shocked. He suppressed his roiling qi and blood and fled into the distance. That attack just now felt as if he had crashed into a huge mountain, making him feel powerless. Is this the strength of the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean tier? Lin Xian's eyes flashed. He knew that the gap between them was too big, and it was impossible to kill Zhang Jun. Let's go check out that door first. Lin Xian made up his mind. Just as Lin Xian was moving, there was another person moving quickly in the formation. She was the white-clothed girl. She had already separated from the disciples of Wuxia sect, but obviously, she had not found what she was looking for. Just as she and Lin Xian were moving quickly, a ball of black fog entered the blood pool at an astonishing speed. After a moment, a dull sound came from the void. The whole formation stopped and the sea of fire around them gradually disappeared. At this moment, Lin Xian and the white-clothed girl had already arrived in front of the blood-red door. Everyone's eyes were burning as they stared at the two of them, their eyes filled with the flames of jealousy. Zheng Jun shouted crazily, "And you dare!" Lin Xian did not pay attention to anyone. He cautiously glanced at the white-clothed girl not far away, then pushed open the door with force. At this moment, a red and black blood sword flew out from the blood pool like red lightning and quickly hit the white-clothed girl. Pung! A purple armor appeared on the white-clothed girl's body and blocked most of the attack, but she still spat out a mouthful of blood. Behind her, the red and black blood sword changed and a black-robed person appeared strangely. Black fog roiled on his body mixed with red blood. This change was so sudden that even Lin Xian couldn't react in time. Chapter 138. Three figures crashed into the crimson door. Wangdong. The crimson door slowly closed, blocking everyone outside. Ah! My inheritance! Damn it, why not me? That Lin guy is too lucky. Some warriors covered their heads and cried bitterly, lamenting their lives. Among them, Zheng Jun was the most upset. He had the highest cultivation and as a personal disciple, he had a distinguished status. He had always thought that he was number one among these people. However, the martial arts inheritance that was so close to him slipped away from his hands. Furthermore, he could only watch helplessly as it slipped away. And Lin Xian, who he regarded as an ant, could enter. This is not fair. Zheng Jun roared in his heart. He slammed his palm on the crimson door, but there was no effect. Humph! I don't believe that you won't come out. Zheng Jun sat down and prepared to wait for Lin Xian. He wanted to snatch the inheritance from Lin Xian's hands and trample Lin Xian to death. Seeing Zheng Jun sit down, the other warriors also sat down and prepared to wait. Although there was no guarantee of success, they still had to try. Of course, not everyone stayed. Some warriors left wisely. There were other treasures outside, and there was no need to wait for an illusory inheritance. Behind the crimson door, it was like another world. There was no green floor or hard wall. Instead, it was like a cave surrounded by natural mountains. Lin Xian immediately assumed a defensive posture and quickly scanned the surroundings with his soul power. Beside him, the girl in white was injured and her body was weak. She forced herself to use the purple armor, forming a purple shadow to protect her body. Are you okay? Lin Xian looked at her inquisitively. The girl in white's veil was stained with blood. She took it off and slowly shook her head. She took out an elixir and consumed it. Then, she healed her injuries and looked around vigilantly. Lin Xian saw the girl in white's face and was stunned. He had seen many beauties. Murong Qianling's coldness, Tang Ye's unruliness, and Yin Qinjia's shyness. However, compared to the young girl in front of them, they still paled in comparison. Feeling Lin Xian's gaze, the white-clothed girl's face turned slightly red. Her eyes flashed with anger and she couldn't help but snort softly. Lin Xian scratched his head awkwardly, not knowing what to say. Kid, are you tempted? A hoarse voice echoed in the cave, sounding somewhat sinister. You and I will work together to capture her. I want the thing, you want the person. What do you think? The voice echoed. Lin Xian was speechless and rolled his eyes. Did he look like he couldn't wait? After the white-clothed girl heard this, her body trembled. Then she looked at Lin Xian warily. After thinking for a while, the girl in white moved her lips and said to Lin Xian, "Don't listen to his nonsense. He is from the Nether Hall. He is very vicious. Don't fall into his trap." Lin Xian was startled. It seemed that the two were afraid of each other and didn't dare to casually attack. The white-clothed girl was injured, but the black-clothed man didn't dare to attack. It seemed that the white-clothed girl was very powerful. He then recalled how the white-clothed girl broke Zheng Jun's attack with a single finger. That finger was very stunning and seemed to contain a kind of intent. Where is this? The land of inheritance? Lin Xian didn't answer the two. Instead, he kept looking around. He used his soul force to observe, but didn't find anything strange. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. The space here is very big. There seems to be something inside. Wine Lord reminded. Lin Xian nodded. He wanted to explore, but he was worried about the two. Especially the black-clothed man. His aura was very similar to the black-clothed youth's. He killed in Mountain Overlook City. Moreover, he had heard of the Nether Hall from General Zeng. As for the white-clothed girl's background, he didn't know. However, she didn't seem like a bad person. The white-clothed girl doesn't seem to be from this area. Wine Lord said slowly. You know. Lin Xian was slightly surprised. Wine Lord snorted. She was suppressed by the space. I'm afraid her cultivation is above the Spirit Sea realm. Moreover, she's about the same age as you. Do you think there's such a person in Xia country? Above the Spirit Sea realm? Lin Xian was surprised. He then looked at the white-clothed girl a few more times. This was too terrifying. To enter the 3 spirit realms at such a young age. There really wasn't anyone in Xia country. Feeling Lin Xian's gaze, the white-clothed girl shrank back. She was now seriously injured and was afraid that Lin Xian and the black-clothed man would join forces. Kid, have you thought it through? The black-clothed man spoke again. I think the situation is pretty good. No one needs to fight. Lin Xian shrugged. Everyone coexisted peacefully. You guys wait here. I'll go ahead and take a look. Lin Xian didn't want to break the balance. The white-clothed girl and the black-clothed man weren't people he could deal with. Only by stalling for time would he have a chance to get out. You. The white-clothed girl's face turned sullen. She glared at Lin Xian fiercely. The black-clothed man was also stunned. He didn't expect that Lin Xian wouldn't help anyone. Do you know about the Nether Hall? The white-clothed girl said. That's an evil force that once harmed many countries. And he's a remnant of the Nether Hall. If you don't kill him, he'll kill you sooner or later. Whoosh! A black light flashed and attacked the white-clothed girl like black lightning. Rumble! The purple armor emitted light, forming a tight defense. Lin Xian tensed up and prepared to retreat. These two were stronger than Zheng Jun. He couldn't deal with them now. Kid, she's right. The black-clothed man laughed. Our Templar Hall is indeed powerful. As long as you help me, I'll lead you into the Templar Hall and make you a member of the Nether Hall. Even you can't do anything to her. My cultivation is lower than yours. What can I do? Lin Xian didn't understand. I can feel a sharp sword intent from your body. As long as you and I work together, we can definitely break through her defense. The black-clothed man said coldly. So that's how it is. Lin Xian finally understood. It turned out that both of them had taken a liking to his sword intent. Young hero, you can't listen to him. The white-clothed girl quickly said as she recovered. The Nether Hall must be trying to revive some old monsters. He's probably here for the life essence. This thing contains a powerful vitality that can revive some of the old guys in the Nether Hall. That's why we must get rid of him. Life essence. Lin Xian's eyes flashed. If the life essence was so magical, would it work on Wine Lord? Lin Xian quickly asked through voice transmission. It should be effective. But if the grade is too low, the effect won't be great. Wine Lord slowly said. After getting the answer, he fell into deep thought. No matter what, we have to try. Lin Xian decided to help Wine Lord find the life essence. Chapter 139. Brat, you talk too much. Lin Xian's question clearly displeased the black-robed man, and a black fog rushed towards Lin Xian. Chi! With a flash of sword light, the black fog was cut open and gradually dissipated. What a sharp sword intent! The white-clothed woman was slightly shocked. She knew the difference in cultivation between the two. The black-robed man was obviously much stronger than Lin Xian. But this sword cut open the black-robed man's attack. Looks like if I don't show you some tricks, you won't be honest. The black-robed man was somewhat angry. He hid in the darkness, but attacks came from all directions. Netherworld prison. The black fog around Lin Xian fluctuated, and 4 chains formed from black fog shot out from the ground, trapping him. There were fine black lines between the chains, emitting a dangerous aura. Lin Xian's eyes flashed, and everything around him was clearly imprinted in his mind. Careful, don't touch the black chi, the white-clothed woman in the distance warned. Hurricane style. The long sword swept out, and 4 green hurricanes formed, breaking out in all directions. Lin Xian's body also jumped up. Gale 3 thrusts. The long sword turned into a shooting star and flew out, as if merging with the wind extremely fast. However, the black fog was not made of metal, and could change shape at will. Lin Xian's body flew far away, and the entire rectangular black fog was stretched infinitely, but it did not shatter. It's useless, don't waste your energy. Even a martial artist in the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier can't escape from the netherworld prison, not to mention you. The black-robed man's words carried a trace of pride, and his voice drifted, making people unable to distinguish its source. Lin Xian retreated rapidly, and was once again enveloped by the black fog. Brat, there's only one way to live, and that is to join hands with me, the black-robed man threatened. Lin Xian's lips curled up slightly. He was not afraid because it was not the first time he dealt with people from the Netherworld Hall. Earlier in the battle in Mountain Overlook City, he knew that people from the Netherworld Hall were afraid of attacks with yang attributes such as thunder and fire. He had never used the golden lightning before, so he was not worried. Even if it didn't work, he still had the bronze gauntlets. Keeping himself alive was not a problem. Tell me, what is the life essence he's looking for? Lin Xian asked in a deep voice. The woman in white was stunned. She thought that Lin Xian would be afraid and join forces with the black-robed man, but now it seemed that wasn't the case. I should be looking for the same thing as him, but I didn't succeed. The woman in white said, according to my calculations, this thing should be in this ruin. It's a vicious beast egg, but I don't know what species it is. In order to gain Lin Xian's support, the woman in white told him everything she knew. Vicious beast egg? Lin Xian's face was expressionless, but his heart was shaken. He remembered the cyan vicious beast egg in his storage ring. It was given to him by the little white monkey in the cave. It looked very ordinary, so he didn't pay much attention to it. However, the woman in white's words made him suspicious. Wine Lord, what's so special about that egg? Lin Xian asked. That egg is not simple. It's indeed a type of life essence. Wine Lord said. But I can't use it, and you can't give it to anyone. Some of my memories are sealed, but I should recognize it subconsciously. Wine Lord thought for a moment and said. Since Wine Lord said it was important, Lin Xian would definitely not hand it over. Looks like I have to deal with the black-robed man. Lin Xian made a decision and said with his soul, how long do you need to recover? Lin Xian's voice sounded in the woman in white's mind. Her delicate body trembled as she said, you can attack at any time. Lin Xian confirmed the battle plan with her, and then said to the black-robed man, I agree. Walala. The black fog dissipated, and the black-robed man's voice sounded, go and cut through her defense. Lin Xian held the crimson flame sword in his hand and walked forward slowly. When he was halfway there, he suddenly attacked. In the corner, the air vibrated, and a sword light flashed with a shocking sword intent. Bang! The black fog rolled and formed a shield, entangling the sword chi and melting it. Brat, you're courting death. The black-robed man was furious. He did not expect Lin Xian to attack him, nor did he expect Lin Xian to discover his location. Wind fusion style. Since Lin Xian had attacked, he would not stop. He waved his sword chi and attacked the black-robed man. At the same time, the woman in white also attacked. She threw out a series of palm shadows with shocking momentum. The strange sword chi disappeared and then reappeared in the air, slashing towards the black-robed man's back. The palm shadows blocked his escape route. Lin Xian and the woman in white worked together for the first time, and they had great chemistry. Humph, you can't hurt me. The black-robed man sneered. His body turned into black fog and merged into the air. My body is illusory. You can't hit me. The black-robed man laughed and floated in the air. As for you, you dare to go against the Nether Hall. How stupid. Whoosh! The air fluctuated, and a thick sword chi flew out and pierced through the black fog. Explode! Lin Xian shouted. Crackle! With a loud sound, golden arcs of lightning danced and formed a curtain of lightning in the air, completely covering the black fog. Chi! 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 Ah! The black-robed man screamed and turned back into his human form, tumbling in the air. Nether flash! With a flash of black light, the black-robed man disappeared and reappeared in another direction. There were many small transparent holes on his body, and there was a burnt smell coming from him. He looked very miserable. I didn't expect you to have the lightning attribute, the woman in white exclaimed. She looked at Lin Xian with curiosity. Brat, you dare to hurt me? I'll refine you into a slave and make you wish you were dead. The black-robed man's voice was hoarse and full of killing intent. Lin Xian smiled faintly. Cut the crap. I've killed more than one monster like you. You're the nether dozen, aren't you? What? You've killed people from the Templar Hall? The black-robed man was furious. The black fog on his body surged and formed a ferocious ghost head behind him. Let me do it. The woman in white had a serious expression. Lin Xian nodded and retreated. He knew that the black-robed man was as strong as the woman in white, but he was suppressed by the space. I'll help from the side, Lin Xian said. His sword intent and lightning had a restraining effect on the black-robed man. The woman in white nodded slightly. Then her body floated out, and multicolored light flew out from her body. Flickering light passing shadow. It was as if thousands of figures were dancing. Light and shadow danced, and the vast spiritual power vibrated, causing the void to tremble. The woman in white and the black-robed man fought and moved quickly. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes and could barely keep up with their speed. Too fast. Lin Xian smiled bitterly. He found that he could not help. Boom, there was a violent collision. Blood flowed from the corner of the woman in white's mouth. She retreated, and a look of pain appeared on her peerless face. On the other hand, the black-robed man's aura surged. The black fog behind him filled the sky and flooded half of the cave. He waved his hand, and dozens of black fog turned into poisonous dragons. They were ferocious and pounced on the woman in white. Wind thunder slash. Lin Xian swung his sword. The sword radiance shone and cut the poisonous dragons in half. Golden electric arcs danced at the cut. Hell prison. Chapter 140. For chains formed by black fog appeared beside Lin Xian again. Phantom Thunderstep. Lin Xian used his spiritual energy to form a lightning body, but his real body dodged quickly. The black fog flashed and the black chains shrouded the lightning body, controlling it. At this moment, the white-clothed woman and the black-robed man were fighting again. The white-clothed woman's palm technique was exquisite. Every time she struck, thousands of rays of light would appear, dissipating all the black fog that approached her. However, she was injured after all. Every battle would cause her injuries to worsen, causing her great pain. For a moment, the white-clothed woman was at a disadvantage. Wind thunder cut. The sword intent filled the sky, carrying the power of wind and thunder, and suddenly slashed at the black-robed man. Swish! Swish! A sword chi that was dozens of feet long slashed down, and golden lightning flashed in the void, attacking the black-robed man. This attack was very sudden. The black-robed man was injured by the lightning and quickly dispersed. After he used the nether prison, he did not pay much attention to it, but he did not expect it to be an illusion. Nether illusion ghost claw. A red light flashed in the black-robed man's eyes, and a huge black ghost claw appeared in front of Lin Xian. Bang! The ghost claw slammed down, causing the air to explode. The force was enough to break a mountain. Lin Xian wanted to escape, but he found that his surroundings were sealed. He could only resist. Spirit-severing protection sword chi. Lin Xian's body glowed with a red sword light, and at the same time he activated the ancient armor on his body to block the attack. Faint ripples appeared, and Lin Xian's body formed a shadow of armor, enveloping him. Rumble! When the black ghost claw touched Lin Xian, the red sword chi around his body shattered in an instant. He felt as if he was hit by a huge mountain. The blood in his body churned, and his spiritual sea shook. He felt that his body was about to shatter. Fortunately, the ancient armor's defense blocked most of the attack, allowing him to escape with his life. Boom! Lin Xian's body flew out and crashed into the ground below, creating a deep pit. Damn it, so powerful! Lin Xian spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was hideous. His entire body was in intense pain, and he even suffered internal injuries. If it wasn't for the ancient armor, this strike would have been enough to take his life. He took out a goblet of spirit wine and quickly downed it. Then, he used the longevity incantation to suppress his injuries before slowly rising to his feet. He's not dead? The black-robed man who was fighting the white-clothed woman sensed that Lin Xian was still alive and was greatly surprised. That strike of his was more than enough to kill a martial artist in the third sky of the spiritual ocean realm, but Lin Xian was only injured. You have quite a few treasures on you. When you die, they'll all be mine. The black-robed man sneered. Once again, a huge ghostly hand was formed, emitting a boundless aura in the air. Lin Xian's pupils shrank as he felt the threat of death looming over him. Fortunately, the white-robed woman acted in time and destroyed the ghostly hand in the sky. Moreover, she attacked with all her might, not giving the black-robed man any chance to escape. Lin Xian stood on the ground with a cold look in his eyes. He had to get rid of the black-robed man as soon as possible, or else he would end up in a miserable state. As long as there was another nether ghostly hand, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Try this. Lin Xian took out the talisman treasure he got from Ling Feng. Injecting spirit power, the octagonal stone bloomed with light, and a huge pressure appeared. Feeling this pressure, the white-robed woman and the black-robed man in the air were shocked. If they were in the outside world, they wouldn't be afraid. However, in this trial by Bloodland, their strength was suppressed, and this kind of method could threaten their lives. Whoosh! The black-robed man made a prompt decision and rushed towards Lin Xian in a flash. Retreat! The white-robed woman shouted, and at the same time, used her movement technique to try and stop him. Go! Lin Xian threw out the talisman treasure. The black mountain peak appeared in the air. The hole on it was gone, but the light was somewhat dim. It slowly rotated and pressed towards the void. Nether flash. The black-robed man dodged and arrived in front of Lin Xian. Kid, go die. A black ghostly claw appeared, and a baleful aura filled the air. It was eerie and terrifying. Lin Xian felt the aura of death, and all the hair on his body stood up. He activated the ancient armor with all his strength, and at the same time, his sword intent continued to rise, and lightning surrounded his body. In an instant Lin Xian used all his methods. Pung! The black ghostly claw came down, but it was sent flying by the white-robed woman. The fierce energy exploded in front of Lin Xian. The three figures retreated. The black-robed man was locked in by the black mountain peak, and the white-robed woman retreated with a pale face. Lin Xian spat out blood and flew backwards. Many of the bones in his body were almost broken, and he had suffered serious internal injuries. It could be said that this was the first time he had suffered such serious injuries since he started cultivating. Putong! Lin Xian crashed into the mountain wall, creating a human-shaped crack, and then fell to the ground. He endured the pain, drank the spirit wine, and used the longevity art. The spirit sea in his body vibrated, and circles of green spirit power surged out, repairing his body. The longevity art released its power, bringing life to Lin Xian's broken body. In another direction, the black-robed man resisted the black mountain peak with all his strength. The black fog on his body continued to expand, forming a 3-foot-tall skeleton man. He raised his hands and resisted the black mountain peak. Don't let him escape. Lin Xian gritted his teeth and said. The white-robed woman's body was surrounded by light, like a fairy. She summoned a lotus flower, and it took root in the void, creating a hazy scene. Slash! The green lotus was like a sharp sword, cutting through the void, and the light shone brightly, covering the front. Nether shock heaven! The black-robed man shouted, and black blood flowed out of his body. It seemed that he had used some kind of forbidden technique, and his aura increased greatly, pushing the black mountain peak away. Rumble! The green lotus slashed and collided with the black fog, and a terrifying energy swept in all directions. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes, and his eyes flashed. He found that the black-robed man was seriously injured, but he was not dead. Have a taste of this. He took out the green gauntlet. He did not have much spiritual energy left, so he could only use it one more time. A white light shone, and Lin Xian slowly raised his left hand. Let's end this. An energy pillar as thick as a water tank shot out, quickly flying towards the black-robed man. Green Lotus Heaven Trap. The white-robed woman also waved her arm, and a green lotus split into several shadows, freezing the void. Feeling the danger of death, the black-robed man frantically tried to escape. Bang! 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 He charged left and right, and each time he brought a huge amount of energy, but he was bounced back every time. The white-robed woman did not have it easy either. Every time the black-robed man hit her, she would spit out blood. The void was frozen, and the black-robed man was locked in midair, unable to escape. White light flashed and drowned him. Since I'm going to die, let's die together. The black-robed man roared crazily, and his body continued to expand. Not good. He's going to self-destruct. The white-robed woman's face turned pale, and she activated her strongest defense. Lin Xian also used all his remaining spiritual energy to activate the ancient armor. Bang! An earth-shattering sound rang out, and the entire void was annihilated. Violent energy scattered in all directions, covering everything. Outside the red door, Zhang Jun and the others waited anxiously. Suddenly, a trace of terrifying energy came out from the door gap, and just the aftershock caused the void to tremble and rumble. Chapter 141. The disciples outside the blood-colored door were shocked by the terrifying power. They didn't know what had happened inside and could only guess. Inside the door, the light gradually faded and dust settled. The surroundings were a mess, and the air was still filled with a terrifying aura. Lin Xian's face was pale, and he gasped for breath. At the moment of the explosion, he frantically activated his defenses, but the power was too strong, and he felt like his body was going to shatter. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a black vortex appeared in front of him and sucked away all the terrifying energy. That was how he managed to escape a calamity. The bronze gauntlets and ancient armor on his body were cracked, and he estimated that they would shatter after a few uses. The mountain talisman turned into dust and disappeared in the air. He circulated the art of longevity as he looked around. Suddenly his eyebrows twitched. In front of him, the white-clothed girl had fallen to the side, and blood was flowing out of her body. "Are you okay?" Lin Xian struggled to walk over. The white-clothed girl was heavily injured, and her consciousness was unclear. She opened her mouth slightly and then fainted. Lin Xian was shocked, but when he sensed that the girl was still alive, he sighed in relief. Taking out a cup of spirit wine, Lin Xian poured it down the girl's throat. Then he sat cross-legged and began to regulate his breathing. 2 hours later, Lin Xian opened his eyes. Although his injuries wouldn't heal immediately, he could at least move. Standing up and stretching his limbs, Lin Xian looked ahead. There was a path there, but he didn't know where it led. He bent down slightly and carried the white-clothed girl on his back, and then walked into the depths of the cave. Feeling the warmth on his back, Lin Xian's heart beat violently. He had never carried a girl on his back, especially such a beautiful girl. Fortunately, his willpower was strong, and he quickly calmed his mind. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xian walked into the depths of the cave. Drip, drip. Water droplets fell from the walls above, and there were some puddles on the ground. Lin Xian stepped on them and they splashed up. After a while he reached the end. There was also a pool in front of him, but it wasn't blood but water. The space wasn't big, only a third of the size of the outer sanctum's main hall. There was a pool in the middle, which took up almost half of the space, surrounded by walls. Other than that, there was nothing else. Lin Xian put the white-clothed girl down and then looked around. He realized that this place was not a land of inheritance, but a figment of the imagination of the disciples outside. However, he didn't come out empty-handed. On the surrounding walls there were some carvings. Many of them were martial arts techniques, which made Lin Xian very happy. These seemed to be Sansho. Wine Lord's eyes were very sharp, and he could tell at a glance. Sansho is also not bad. In any case, I have obtained the Wind Emperor's sword. It can be considered a type of inheritance. Lin Xian was very content. He looked at them one by one and realized that the martial arts on them were not very good. Some of them were even inferior to profound rank martial arts. With a sigh, Lin Xian sat down. At this time, the white-clothed girl also woke up. There was a trace of confusion in her limpid eyes, followed by intense pain. Lin Xian supported her and slowly injected a trace of spirit energy into the girl's body. He realized that the longevity art had a super strong recovery effect, far surpassing that of ordinary cultivation methods. After being nourished by Lin Xian's spirit energy, the white-clothed girl's face had a trace of redness. My name is Lin Xian, a disciple of the mysterious sky sect. How should I address you? Lin Xian retracted his hand and handed over a pot of spirit wine. Jingqiu. The white-clothed girl took the spirit wine and said softly, "Can you tell me in detail what you're looking for?" Lin Xian asked, showing a curious look. Jingqiu shook her head. "Actually, I was ordered to look for this thing. I don't know the details." Lin Xian was stunned. He did not expect such an answer. Following that, the two of them fell silent and recovered their bodies. A day later, Lin Xian woke up hungry. He was at the first sky of the spiritual ocean realm and was far from being able to fast. He needed a large amount of food to replenish his energy. Opposite him, Jingqi's face was also slightly red, and she held her stomach unnaturally. "I'm hungry." Lin Xian's face fell. "Let's see what's there." He stood up and walked to the front of the pool. After a day of recovery, the two of them were much better, and their cultivation had also recovered a little. At this time, the two of them stood in front of the pool and kept looking. Splash! Splash! As if responding to Lin Xian and Jingqiu, a sound came from the water. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes and looked down. A few black shadows swam quickly, spitting out bubbles from time to time. "There's fish." Lin Xian's face lit up. Jingqiu also smiled happily. "Watch me." Lin Xian flicked his finger, and a golden arc flew into the water and disappeared in a flash. A moment later, a low sound came, and then a few black shadows floated up. They were a type of fish that was red all over. They were about a meter long and looked very ordinary. "Hey, it's young fish." Wine Lord was surprised. "But their bloodline is not pure." Lin Xian was too hungry, so he ignored Wine Lord's words and stared at the fish. A total of 3 appeared. Lin Xian scooped them up and cleaned them up. "There's no fire." He scratched his head, took out a long saber, and pierced the red young fish on it. "Let me do it." Jingqiu smiled bitterly. She flipped her palm and a ball of flame appeared. No one would have thought that one day, a treasured weapon and cultivation method would be used on grilling fish. The 3 big fish were eaten up by the two of them, and they breathed a sigh of relief. "It's time to go back." Lin Xian prepared to leave. However, when they returned to the blood-red door, they sadly found that they could not open it at all. "How can this be?" Lin Xian frowned. "I remember that there was a force that sucked us in that day," Jingqiu said. "But there's nothing here." The two of them looked at each other and decided to do a thorough search. After searching for a while, they found nothing. In the end, Lin Xian and Jingqiu returned to the pool. "This pool?" Jingqiu was puzzled. "This is the only place we haven't explored yet. Do you want to go down and take a look?" Lin Xian was also curious. After making the decision, the two of them did not immediately go down. Instead, they focused on recovering their cultivation. No one knew what was at the bottom of the pool. Even Wine Lord could not explore it. 2 days later, the two of them had recovered about 70 to 80% of their cultivation, and they finally decided to go down and explore. Lin Xian and Jingqiu opened their spiritual defenses and dived into the water. The water was not cold. On the contrary, it was warm. As the two of them continued to sink, the young fish around them were frightened. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes to explore the surroundings. He found a huge black shadow below. Jingqiu also noticed the abnormality. The two of them discussed and decided to continue sinking. With Lin Xian's current cultivation, he could stay underwater for an hour without breathing. If they stayed underwater for any longer, he would not be able to take it. Jingqi's cultivation was very high, so she probably would not have this problem. The two of them were very fast, and it did not take long for them to reach the black shadow. Chapter 142. Lin Xian looked in front of him with a face full of shock. In front of him was a dilapidated building that was split into 2 halves from the middle. The cut was even as if it was cut by a sharp blade. The stone pillars of the palace were piled up with skulls. It was very terrifying. Lin Xian was shocked. He slowly descended and arrived at the top of the building. There was a chilly aura that made people feel uncomfortable all over. Shen Jingqiu also descended and walked in with Lin Xian. There were dozens of skeletal corpses lying on the ground. The surrounding water seemed to have no effect on them. One of the corpses stood proudly. The flesh on his body was still there, as if he was still alive. However, his head was missing. Only a headless corpse was left standing there. Could it be that the pillars outside were piled up with these people's skulls? Lin Xian gasped. But where is this person's head? Shen Jingqiu was puzzled. If his body was indestructible, his head should be the same. However, there were no such skulls outside. The two of them couldn't figure it out. Lin Xian shook his head and began to search around. There are words here. Shen Jingqiu transmitted. Lin Xian walked over and found a row of crooked words on the ground. They are here. The person who carved the words obviously had a high cultivation because Lin Xian and Shen Jingqiu could feel a sense of despair from the words. These corpses were at least at the harmonious spirit realm. However, there were no wounds on the bones. It should be a head injury that killed them in one hit. Wine Lord analyzed again. A group of harmonious spirit realm experts, killed in one hit. Lin Xian was speechless. The elders of the Profound Heaven sect were only at the harmonious spirit realm, but these corpses were all at the harmonious spirit realm. In other words, even someone at the level of an elder could be killed with a single strike. Just who was it that had such power? Who were they? Beside him, Shen Jingqiu also noticed this. Her beautiful eyes were filled with shock, and she was speechless for a long time. There's a palace below. Lin Xian looked down. It was as if the underground world had been cut open. On both sides were the mountain rocks at the bottom of the sea, and in the middle was a big crack. The two of them quickly descended and finally arrived at the second palace. It was also cut in half and filled with corpses. However, there were clearly more people here, and there were also some broken swords and sabers left behind. Lin Xian discovered that the lowest grade of these weapons was a profound grade treasure, but now they were all broken. There were words here too. Shen Jingqiu pointed to the ground and said with an unnatural expression, "They're here. The item is missing." He did not seem to have finished speaking. He wondered if there was a third palace. Lin Xian was curious. "I can feel an aura from below," Shen Jingqiu said. "I don't have much time left. I need to take a breather." Lin Xian was a little hesitant. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "Come back quickly." The two of them were like agile fish, quickly descending. In front, a light shone. "There's a palace. It's not destroyed." The two of them were happy and increased their speed. Whoosh! A black shadow flashed and attacked the two of them. The water stirred and surged. A huge force pressed down on Lin Xian, causing him to feel stifled. Lin Xian flashed and quickly dodged. However, he was affected by the resistance in the water, so his speed was slower than usual. Dang! He raised his hand and struck out with the triple suppressing mountain hand, colliding with the black shadow. Moreover, he borrowed the recoil and quickly retreated. After retreating far away, he discovered that the black shadow was actually the tentacle of an octopus. Lin Xian and Shen Jingqiu did not dare to stay. They ran with all their might towards the palace below. The tentacle was like a sharp sword, quickly slashing towards the two of them, splitting wind style. Lin Xian struck out with his sword. The water in front of him seemed to be split in two, flowing to the sides. This was a new sword skill he had comprehended when he was comprehending the Wind Emperor's sword. He did not expect it to be so effective in the water. Chi-Chi! Seeing that the tentacle behind them was about to hit the two of them, Lin Xian and Shen Jingqiu finally entered the palace. Bo! It was as if they had entered another space. There was no water in the palace, but it was filled with spirit energy. Phew! Lin Xian heaved a sigh of relief. It was almost time for him to breathe. Fortunately, there was no water here. Outside, the octopus tentacle seemed to be afraid of the palace. It did not attack but quickly left. Let's see what's inside. Lin Xian and Shen Jingqiu were still searching. Damn, it's a treasured weapon! Lin Xian exclaimed. He discovered that the shelves in front of him were filled with weapons. Each of them had inscriptions carved on them. Lin Xian took a fancy to a long sword and reached out to grab it. Hua! The long sword shattered into tiny pieces and scattered on the ground. How could this be? He tried again and realized that all the weapons could not be used. At the side, Shin Jingqiu also shook her head. The treasured bottle in her hand also shattered quickly. These things were all broken. It was just that their appearance did not change. The two of them were disappointed. They quickly walked into the inner hall. Inside there was a bronze coffin lying there quietly. On top of it there was a plate with 2 eggshells. However, both of them were broken and there was nothing inside. This? Shin Jingqiu exclaimed. Could it be life essence? Lin Xian's expression was strange. He thought of the green egg in the storage ring. Gently picking up a piece of the eggshell, Lin Xian realized that it was extraordinarily hard. It was impossible to break. At this moment, the green egg in his storage ring shook as if it had come to life. Lin Xian remained calm and asked Wine Lord. Maybe it originally belonged here. Wine Lord sighed. Lin Xian was slightly stunned. He discovered that there was an empty space on the plate. Could it be that this egg was also here? Lin Xian guessed. He planned to take the broken eggshell away. Let's each take one. Shin Jingqiu was also very interested in the eggshell. She immediately snatched one. Lin Xian put away the other one. This picture is? Wine Lord was surprised. Lin Xian looked around. He discovered that there were 2 dragons carved on both sides of the bronze coffin. They were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Go around, Wine Lord said. Lin Xian quickly moved and discovered that there was a sword carved on the innermost side of the coffin. The sword hilt had a dragon body. It was very strange and intimidating. Shin Jingqiu walked over and also discovered the carving. Her beautiful eyes turned. I seem to have heard of a legend. She stared at the strange sword, her eyes somewhat blurred. Legend? Lin Xian asked, what legend? I once heard my master talk about it. At that time they were talking about the continent's weapons. Some people said it was the Overlord's spear, while others said it was the Jadefall saber. But my master said it was the Great Dragon sword. He said that it was the sharpest weapon. At that time all the elders laughed and said that the Great Dragon sword was only a legend. I didn't expect to see this picture here today. Shin Jingqiu sighed. Could the legend be true? Great Dragon sword? Lin Xian whispered. He reached out and pressed his hand on it, wanting to feel it. Chapter 143. A loud dragon's roar rang out, echoing through the 9 heavens. Lin Xian's soul felt a strong impact, as if there was a real dragon's shadow rushing into his mind. Wang. In his mind the soul power formed a long sword buzzing. Sword intent shot up into the sky. Lin Xian was like a divine sword, resisting the dragon sword mark. Shin Jingqiu's beautiful eyes were surprised. She didn't expect the young man in front of her to cause such a phenomenon. And inside Lin Xian's body, Wine Lord's expression changed for the first time. Great dragon sword mark. I didn't expect to see it here. Little Xian, do as I say, Wine Lord said in a low voice. Then Wine Lord taught Lin Xian how to form seals, sucking the great dragon sword mark into his mind. Hong! As if heaven and earth were split open, Lin Xian felt a wave of emptiness. Then his whole body was enveloped in a huge amount of energy. The great dragon intent roared in his mind, causing his whole body to tremble. Lin Xian followed Wine Lord's teachings and quickly formed seals, wanting to seal the great dragon sword mark. That sword's shadow screamed. Wang! Wang! The mysterious small sword in his body trembled, emitting sword intent. In his mind the great dragon sword mark felt the existence of some small sword and immediately calmed down, slowly merging with Lin Xian's sword spirit. The process was very fast, only happening in an instant. Lin Xian felt his mind become abnormally clear, and the world in front of him seemed to have changed. He took his hand away and found that the great dragon mark on the coffin had disappeared. You sucked away the engraving? Shin Jingqiu's face was full of disbelief. She came from a large sect and had seen many things, so she naturally saw the danger of the engraving. Even she didn't dare to try. But this young man in the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier actually succeeded. It ran in by itself. I couldn't do anything about it. Lin Xian spread his hands, looking like he didn't mean to. Shin Jingqiu found that she could no longer see through Lin Xian. It was as if this youth was hiding countless secrets. Lin Xian didn't continue the topic. Instead he said, let's search a bit more. If there's nothing, well, go back. Shen Jingqiu nodded. She didn't know why, but she felt an inexplicable sense of uneasiness. The two of them split up. Lin Xian walked slowly while secretly communicating with Wine Lord. What exactly is this Great Dragon Sword seal, and the legend of the Great Dragon Sword? Wine Lord, do you know? There is still some information left in my memories. It just so happens that this Great Dragon Sword is among them, Wine Lord said slowly. Legend has it that when the heavens and earth were first created, 7 sword scars were formed, representing 7 types of origin power. Later on, a true dragon fused with one of the sword scars, forming the Great Dragon Sword. In the legends, the Great Dragon Sword's attack is unparalleled. Not only is it a peerless divine weapon, it also contains a supreme attack saint technique. It is a treasure that everyone wants to obtain. True dragon, 7 types of origin power, attack saint technique? Lin Xian was shocked. He didn't expect the Great Dragon Sword to have such a great origin. What you just absorbed was a sword seal. Someone must have imitated the Great Dragon Sword and carved it, Wine Lord explained. It can be said that this sword seal is a simplified version of the Great Dragon Sword, Wine Lord sighed. I didn't expect that there would be someone here who knows about the Great Dragon Sword. Then where is the real Great Dragon Sword? What's in that coffin? Lin Xian asked curiously. Don't think too much. We don't know where the Great Dragon Sword is. It's impossible for it to appear here, Wine Lord said coldly. If that thing were to appear, I'm afraid the entire world would be in chaos. Let's not talk about Yunzhou. Even the Great Xia would be destroyed in an instant. Lin Xian was speechless. It seemed that he had underestimated the temptation of the Great Dragon Sword. Comprehend this sword seal well. The things it contains are not inferior to any inheritance. Lin Xian nodded. He realized that he knew too little about this world. If one day I can obtain the real Great Dragon Sword, how impressive would that be? Lin Xian yearned for it. He decided that after settling his family's matters, he would go out to train. After fusing with the sword seal, his soul power increased again. Soon he would reach the level of a first-grade inscriptionist. What made him happy was that his purple spirit eyes had broken through to the 2nd level. Not only could he use his purple spirit eyes to probe, but he could also use soul attacks and other means. Lin Xian's eyes flashed with a hint of red light, as if he could see through everything. He turned his gaze to the bronze coffin and looked at it curiously. Bang! Bang! A pair of eyes like 2 divine lights looked at Lin Xian. Whoosh! Lin Xian quickly retreated with a face full of shock. That gaze just now had come from the bronze coffin, and he had also vaguely seen a human figure lying inside. Gulp! Lin Xian swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He realized that this place was a little scary. A coffin that could carve the Great Dragon Sword seal must not be a simple existence. Fortunately, the existence in the coffin only glanced at Lin Xian and did not do anything else. Lin Xian felt his hair stand on end and planned to leave this place quickly. He found Shen Jingqiu and planned to return. The two of them walked back and came to the exit. However, they realized that the giant octopus was still outside, blocking the way out. What should we do? Shen Jingqiu looked at Lin Xian. Although Lin Xian's cultivation was weaker than hers, she did not underestimate Lin Xian. Let's see if we can charge out. Lin Xian gritted his teeth. He did not want to stay here any longer. Bow! Bow! Spiritual power armor appeared on their bodies and they quickly rushed out. Among them, Lin Xian held a long sword in his hand as a precaution. Whoosh! 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 The giant octopus waved its tentacles and stirred up a whirlpool at the bottom of the water, attacking Lin Xian and Shen Jingqiu. This kind of attack was not something that Lin Xian and Shen Jingqiu could withstand. They held on for a while before retreating. Damn it, we're trapped here. Lin Xian's face darkened as he walked around the hall. Forget it, let's rest first. This monster can't stay here forever. Shen Jingqiu said, when my body fully recovers, I will be able to use a secret technique and we will be able to get out. The two of them sat down and began to cultivate. Lin Xian began to comprehend the inheritance that he had obtained during this period. He focused on the Wind Emperor sword and the Great Dragon Sword seal. From the Wind Emperor sword, He had obtained the wind fusion style, hurricane style, and wind splitting style, which were extremely powerful. And this was only a part of the Wind Emperor's sword. The great dragon sword seal that he had just obtained contained even more. It was not a specific sword skill, but a mysterious and profound concept. Wine Lord had told him that the great dragon sword seal was an offensive saint technique that could simulate all kinds of attacks. Although this sword mark wasn't that abnormal, the attack method it contained was also a rare secret technique. Lin Xian's soul power was strong and his comprehension ability was strong. With Wine Lord's guidance, he improved rapidly. Boom! Boom! Chapter 144. This feeling was very strange, and it made Lin Xian uneasy. Beside him, Shun Jingqiu also opened her eyes, and a solemn expression appeared on her beautiful face. You felt it too? Lin Xian asked. Yes. Shun Jingqiu looked at the bronze coffin inside. Don't act rashly. Wait for me to recover, and leave immediately. Lin Xian immediately gave Shun Jingqiu a bottle of spirit wine to let her recover. Clang! With a loud sound, the bronze coffin opened a little. Lin Xian stood up abruptly, feeling extremely terrified. Don't act rashly. Wine Lord reminded. This aura is so dark. Shun Jingqiu frowned. Could this be the old fart of the Nether Hall? Lin Xian felt an aura similar to the black-robed man, but it was not quite the same. Could it be that the them carved on the ground was referring to the Nether Hall? Were those people also killed by the Nether Hall? But why did he not want the heads? Lin Xian could not figure it out, but now was not the time to think about these questions. He and Shun Jingqiu cautiously retreated. Buzz! An inexplicable suction force appeared. Like an invisible abyss that was about to swallow the two of them. This power? Could it be that he sucked us in? The two of them circulated their spirit power and tried their best to resist. Lin Xian realized that the green egg in his ring seemed to be about to be absorbed, and he was so frightened that he quickly controlled it. Fortunately, Wine Lord was there, and the green egg did not escape. Shun Jingqiu's expression changed drastically, and a violent aura fluctuated from her body. He wants to absorb the life essence. Lin Xian understood. Sword intent surged all over his body, and the great dragon sword seal in his mind hummed softly, and a sharp sword aura slashed forward. Chi! Chi! The sword slashed down, cutting off the illusory power. The suction force disappeared, and everything returned to normal. However, in the next moment, an even stronger suction force appeared. Let's go. The two of them did not hesitate and rushed out of the hall. In their opinion, the bronze coffin was much more powerful than the giant octopus. Lin Xian and Lin Xian turned into two rays of light and dove into the water. Whoosh! Whoosh! The octopus tentacles flew over like mountains. Behind them, the bronze coffin flew out of the palace and chased after them. Lin Xian felt his scalp go numb. He circulated his strength with all his might and fled downwards. Bang! 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 3 water pillars rushed over and slammed into the two of them, causing Lin Xian's qi and blood to roil. I have a kind of life essence on me. He might be coming for me. Hurry up and leave. Shun Jingqiu looked dignified. She didn't want Lin Xian to die with her in vain. I have some on me too. Lin Xian smiled bitterly. He had a good impression of the girl in front of him. Behind him, the bronze coffin trembled slightly. The dragons on both sides of the coffin seemed to come alive. They turned into 2 water dragons and roared as they charged forward. On the other side, the giant octopus was not far behind. Although it was afraid of the bronze coffin, it was attracted by the things on the two of them. A giant tentacle dozens of feet long covered the sky and rushed toward Lin Xian and Lin Xian. There's a crack below. It seems like there's a teleportation array. Wine Lord's voice sounded. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes and found a crack. He hurriedly told Shun Jingqiu where the two of them were. Clang! Lin Xian slashed open the crack with his sword and found that there were indeed 2 ancient array platforms inside. At this moment, Shun Jingqiu's body seemed to be pulled by something and quickly retreated. Damn it! Lin Xian's face was gloomy. Almost without any hesitation, he rushed into the sky. Meteor beyond the heavens. Sword chi was like a rainbow and sword intent surged. Lin Xian used his strongest attack and turned into a meteor. Outside of him there was a faint dragon shape, roaring ferociously. Shinjinkia's heart sank bit by bit. The moment she was caught, a bitter smile appeared on her face. Her cultivation was extremely high and her status was even more honorable. She came to such a remote place to search for something and was about to die here. At that moment, she thought of many things and could only sigh in the end. Am I going to die here? Suddenly, the water surged violently and a figure rushed over. It's him. Shinjinkia's heart palpitated. She thought that Lin Xian had left long ago. She did not expect. He actually gave up on escaping for me and disregarded his life. Shinjinkia's heart was filled with an inexplicable emotion. But what's the use? In her opinion, Lin Xian's cultivation could not change anything. Whoosh! Below, sword intent exploded and the sharp edge of the sword split the water apart. The stunning sword slashed Shinjinkia's back. Let's go. Lin Xian transmitted his voice. Shinjinkia was in a daze as she stared blankly at the young man in front of her. He had black hair, delicate features and a thin body. But his eyes were as bright as the stars and full of confidence. After that, a violent wave swept over. Lin Xian flashed, grabbed Shinjinkia and rushed down quickly. Holding the beauty in his left hand, he waved the long sword in his right hand. With a slash, the water on both sides flew backward and even the resistance was reduced. Shinjinkia came back to her senses. Feeling the strange sensation in her hand, her face turned slightly red. However, she did not withdraw her hand. Instead, she let Lin Xian hold it. She rejoiced in her heart. Just as she was about to give up, this young man pulled her out of the brink of death. Whoosh! Lin Xian landed on the array platform. Just activate your spiritual power. This was what the wine lord told him. Shinjinkia stood on another array platform and stared at Lin Xian with her beautiful eyes. The array was activated and white light flashed. Just as the figure was about to disappear, a pouch flew into Lin Xian's hand. At the same time, Shinjinkia's voice echoed in his ears. I'm in the Sky Martial region, Flying Moon Pavilion. Finally, the light disappeared and the figure disappeared. Inside the Blood-Red Palace, the disciples left the blood-red door unwillingly. The trial was about to end, and they did not want to waste any more time. Zhang Jun also stood up unwillingly. He glared fiercely at the blood-colored door and quickly left. When Lin Xian and Shinjinkia left using the teleportation array, the trial of blood had also ended. The time was slightly different from the calculations. It was less than a month, but it was the longest trial in 100 years. Outside, white light flashed. Disciples appeared one after another. They all had different expressions, but most of them were joyful. After all, they all obtained treasures, and many of them even entered the spiritual ocean tier. The elders of the various sects all laughed and looked at the disciples with joy in their hearts. What? Only you came out? Where are the others? In the crowd, the Ling family's elder shouted, his face red. In front of him was a Ling family disciple. Under the elder's pressure, he trembled and almost fainted. I don't know. The disciple's voice trembled. Let's wait a little longer. Maybe they're still inside. Someone advised, after all, the trial grounds haven't completely closed. On the other side, Black Heaven sect. Elder Shui looked at Zhang Jun, who entered the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and his old face bloomed like a chrysanthemum. Elder Duamis' expression darkened. Why hadn't Lin Xian come out yet? Junior brother Lin entered the final inheritance ground. I wonder what the result was, Murong Qianling said. What? Inheritance ground? Not only the elders of Black Heaven sect, but the elders of other forces also knew about this. After all, many people saw Lin Xian enter the blood-red door. Chapter 145. Everyone looked in the direction of the Black Heaven sect with undisguised passion in their eyes. Elder Duanmu, Elder Hua, and the rest caught Murong Qianling and kept asking her questions. Elder Shui stood at the side with a gloomy face. In the distance, the elders of the Ling family almost vomited blood when they heard the news. Their bodies trembled non-stop. Get ready to receive Lin Xian, Elder Duanmu said in a deep voice. No matter what, we have to protect him. He knew that inheritances were too important. and other forces might try to meddle in it. Even if they didn't make a move on the surface, they would make a move in the dark. The other elders also nodded. They also knew the seriousness of the matter. Everyone waited anxiously. As long as Lin Xian came out, a group of people would probably swarm him. However, after a period of time, the exit gradually faded and was about to disappear. Lin Xian's figure still hadn't come out. He couldn't have died inside, right? Someone gloated. It's possible. Does he really think that it's so easy to get an inheritance warrior? Secretly, many people sneered. On the Black Heaven sect's side, the elders were anxious and asked Murong Qianling and the rest again. Elder Shui sneered and said indifferently, "There's no need to wait. The seal is closed. Dead geniuses are nothing. There's no need for us to worry about him." Everyone was silent. Murong Qianling and the rest had a look of disbelief. However, no matter what, they couldn't enter. They could only wait 7 years for the seal to be released again. The other forces secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If Lin Xian really brought out the inheritance martial arts, there would be chaos here. With Lin Xian's talent, he would definitely be able to advance quickly. After a few years, he might enter the 3 spirit realms. If he added his abnormal sword intent, most people in the cloud state wouldn't be his match. The Black Heaven sect would also surpass the 3 sects and become the overlord of the cloud state. This was a situation that no one wanted to see. Other than the Black Heaven sect, the most sorrowful were the elders of the Ling family. 10 elite disciples entered and only 1 came out. This was unbearable for them. 2 of the Ling family's elders fainted on the spot. The others were also trembling. Lin Xian. The group of elders gnashed their teeth. They learned from the surviving disciple that the fall of the Ling family disciples was closely related to Lin Xian. They originally wanted to get rid of Lin Xian, but who would have thought that they would be killed by an ant instead? However, Lin Xian did not come out, so they were very sullen and had nowhere to vent their resentment. Let's go. Many forces left one after another. Elder Duanmu sighed. Maybe it takes a lot of time to obtain the legacy martial arts. Maybe Lin Xian is still alive. It's possible that he will come out the next time it opens. Everyone was silent. They knew that this was just a type of consolation. The possibility of this was too small, almost impossible. Left with no other choice, they waited for another day before leaving. Inside the blood-colored palace, in the underwater world, the huge octopus floated powerlessly. All of its blood essence had been sucked dry. A bronze coffin was suspended at the side, its surface flickering with light. A faint green chi floated in the air and gradually converged, forming a human figure above. A green-haired young man appeared. His skin was pale, and he had a strange smile on his face. After moving his body, the green-haired young man turned into a ray of light and arrived at the array platform below. He shot out a ray of light and disappeared. The space shook and a ray of light danced. A human figure appeared in the air. Whoosh! The human figure landed on the ground, his body trembling slightly. This person was Lin Xian. He quickly circulated the art of longevity to remove the side effects of the teleportation. After a while, he opened his eyes. Spreading out his soul power, Lin Xian cautiously scanned his surroundings. This was a cave and there was no one around. It was extremely desolate. Lin Xian let out a sigh of relief and walked out. After passing through a long tunnel, he walked out of the cave. He was surrounded by tall mountains, and there were occasional wolf howls. Seems like it's in the forest. I wonder if it's still in Yunzhou? Lin Xian planned to walk out of the mountains first before making any plans. Whoosh! He turned into a ray of light and flew into the distance. Green trees, green mountains, and flowing water. A boundless aura assaulted his face. In the forest, a few human figures were moving quickly. Sister Yu, that's the demonic beast's cave. The ink spirit flower is there. With the ink spirit flower, Master Hong will definitely help us. The girl's voice had a hint of desire. Whoosh! 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 5 human figures rushed forward and soon arrived in front of a cave. Over there was a purple plant with a black flower blooming. Each petal was like black jade. It's really the ink spirit flower. The girl was pleasantly surprised. She quickly rushed forward. Wait! The young man beside her pulled her back. Don't rush. Let's deal with the problem first. The girl seemed to have understood. Her face turned serious as she looked at the cave with her beautiful eyes. There's a silver cloud beast inside. It's a peak rank 3 demonic beast. I heard that it's not weaker than a rank 4 demonic beast. You guys have to be careful. The leader was a handsome young man. He said to the 4 people behind him. Don't worry, Brother Lon. If we work together, we can still kill a rank 3 demonic beast. The young men were confident in Brother Lon. You guys set up a sword array. I'll lure it out. The young man called Brother Lon said cautiously. The 4 of them stood in 4 different directions. They held long swords and formed a sword art. Spiritual energy surged out of their bodies and entered the ground. It quickly formed a complicated pattern. When Brother Lon saw it, he flipped his palm and took out a piece of dead wood. He lit it up. Faint green smoke rose and emitted a strange smell. It spread out of the cave. Roar! Soon an excited roar came from the cave. Then a silver figure flashed out. Whoosh! The silver figure left a trace in the air. Its huge body had already arrived in front of everyone. Bang! Bang! It landed on the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust. The ground trembled. This was a strange demonic beast. It had the body of a bull and the tail of a snake. Its head was like a flower. It had no facial features, but 5 long stamens that kept rolling outside. Each stamen was a few meters long and silver in color. Its body also seemed to be made of silver. Sensing the strange smell in the air, the silver cloud beast was excited. The 5 colorful petals on its face kept shaking, and the long stamens danced like spiritual snakes. Brother Lon waved his long sword. Sword chi streaked across the air and slashed at the silver cloud beast. Roar! The 5 petals opened up and let out a shocking roar. The silver stamens rolled like spears and stabbed at the sword chi in the air. Brother Lon sneered and said in a low voice, "Burn!" On the sword chi, a red flame appeared and burned fiercely. Sizzle! The silver cloud beast was caught off guard. It was burned by the flame on the sword chi. It roared angrily. It jumped and pounced forward. The 5 long stamens turned into agile whips and kept waving. Bang! Brother Lon quickly retreated and brought the silver cloud beast to the middle of the 4 people. Chapter 146. The moment the silver cloud beast landed, the 4 of them moved. They each used a sword technique and merged it into the air. A sharp aura spread out. Light shone under their feet. Sword chi rushed out. It was as red as fire and slashed towards the silver cloud beast. Clang! Clang! The fiery red sword chi struck the silver cloud beast, causing sparks to fly everywhere. Roar! The silver cloud beast was furious. It roared into the sky. The 5 petals opened up and spat out a powder-like thing. It danced in the air. Oh no, it's poisonous powder. Hold your breath. The young man called Brother Lon shouted. The 4 of them used their spiritual power to protect themselves. At the same time, they kept changing their sword techniques. Wind and fire sky. In the next moment, the sword formation shone brightly. Countless streaks of sword chi spun quickly, forming 2 wing-like shadows. Fan! The young man in the lead shouted. Whoosh! The shadow flapped its wings, bringing with it an endless strong wind. The sharp sword chi was mixed in it as it rushed towards the silver cloud beast. Whoosh! The poisonous powder touched the wind and sword chi. They dissolved each other. The void trembled. The silver cloud beast's attack failed. It was furious. The snake tail behind it kept slapping the ground. The 5 petals on its head glowed. Its demonic aura grew. Roar! The demonic aura intertwined, forming a huge demonic shadow. Its body flashed and it rushed towards the group. Trap! The sword chi changed again. It intertwined into a sword net and covered the front. Rumble! The silver cloud beast's body crashed into the net. It made a shocking sound. The violent energy wave hit the group. Puff! Some of them couldn't withstand the power and spat out blood. Crack! Crack! The entire sword formation broke. The sword shadows disappeared. Oh no, this silver cloud beast is a rank 4 demonic beast. The young man in the lead exclaimed. Run! The group was forced to stop the sword formation. Their aura was tumbling. They couldn't use all their power. After the silver cloud beast attacked, it attacked again. 5 silver stamens danced in the air and rushed towards the group. Every single one of them flew towards a single person. There was venom on them, and the sound of air being torn apart could be heard. Clang! Clang! The group blocked with their swords. But the power of a rank for demonic beast was not something they could resist. Puff! One of the youths made a mistake and a bloody hole appeared on his shoulder. Moreover, the poisonous gas quickly spread through his body. "You're courting death," the youth in the lead shouted loudly. With a shake of his sword, he faced the silver cloud beast head-on. Sword chi crisscross with an astonishing momentum. Not far away, a figure quietly approached, hiding in the forest. This figure was none other than Lin Xian, who had just walked out of the cave. He was running through the forest, and when he heard the sounds of fighting, he rushed over. Lin Xian squatted on a branch and looked ahead through the dense leaves. When he saw the appearance of the silver cloud beast, he exclaimed. He had never seen a demonic beast like this before. This group of people might be in danger. Lin Xian analyzed the situation in his mind. He had already seen how powerful the silver cloud beast was, and only the youth leading the group could handle it. Judging from their appearances, they should be disciples of aristocratic families. It was a good opportunity to ask them. Lin Xian decided to save them. Sword will surged as he slashed out with 2 fingers. A sword arc flew out and merged with the wind. The air surged slightly before returning to normal. Below, the people and demonic beasts who were in a frenzy were suddenly shocked. They felt a sharp sword will surge toward them. The aura made them despair. The youth leading the group quickly looked around but did not find any sword chi. Just as he was feeling suspicious, the silver cloud beast opposite him screamed. A 2-meter-long sword chi appeared out of thin air behind it and slashed its body, causing blood to splatter. The youth leading the group's pupils constricted. He had fought with the silver cloud beast before, so he naturally knew how powerful it was. Not only was this demonic beast powerful, but its defense was also astonishing. Its body was as if it was made of silver and invulnerable. However, that sword chi had actually injured it. How could he not be shocked? The silver cloud beast cried out in pain. It could not find the person who attacked it, so it could only vent its anger on the 5 people in front of it. Oh no! The youth leading the group's heart sank, seeing the angry silver cloud beast rushing over. At this moment, a sword aura shot into the sky from afar and arrived in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. The sword chi surged and the long sword slashed across. The void seemed to be cut open. Everyone was stunned, but the silver cloud beast was still running. However, after a few steps, its head was separated from its body, and it fell to the ground. A skinny figure appeared in front of everyone like a breeze. Lin Xian looked at the silver cloud beast on the ground and felt satisfied. That sword move just now was the result of his comprehension of the great dragon sword seal, and imitating the meteor sword skill. Although Flying Star was powerful, it consumed too much spiritual power. Each time he used it, it would consume almost 1/3 of his spiritual power. Even after he entered the Sea of Souls realm, it was still the same. The great dragon sword mark that he had obtained contained offensive saint spells, and could imitate all kinds of attacks. Under his test, he had created that sword attack just now. The youth leading the group looked at Lin Xian and said in a low voice, "Thank you for your help, brother. Tong Lan is very grateful." The other 4 also saluted with their fists and said, "Thank you, young warrior." Lin Xian smiled, and then his expression changed slightly. He looked at the injured person and said, "He is poisoned. He needs to be treated quickly." Tong Lan and the others quickly ran over and sealed the poison before feeding him pills. Lin Xian's fingertips jumped with sword chi as he cut off the 5 petals of the silver cloud beast. At the same time, he dug out the demonic crystal and put it in his storage ring. "These petals can cure the poison. Feed him," Lin Xian said. This knowledge was taught to him by Wine Lord. Tong Lan did as she was told and fed him one of the petals. After a while, the black chi on the injured disciple dissipated and turned into poison that was expelled from his body. It really worked. The girl's face was filled with joy. "Thank you so much this time." The girl Tong Yu said gratefully, "Young warrior, you are so powerful. I wonder where you are from?" Tong Lan asked curiously. Because the danger was gone, the group relaxed and became curious about Lin Xian, who had suddenly appeared. Lin Xian touched his nose and smiled bitterly. "I am Lin Xian from Yunzhou. I came here by accident. Where is this place? Yunzhou? The group looked at Lin Xian strangely. Tong Yu blinked her big eyes and said, This is Qingzhou, the boundless mountains. You really don't know? Lin Xian shook his head and sighed in relief. Fortunately, he did not run out of the Xia country. Qingzhou was one of the 7 states in the Xia country. It was separated from Yunzhou by Shui province, so it was very far away. Lin Xian estimated that it would take him at least 2 months to return to Yunzhou. Young warrior, if you have nothing else to do, why don't you come back with us so that we can repay you for saving our lives? Forget about the repayment. Lin Xian smiled. But I hope to go back with you. Hearing Lin Xian's reply, the group laughed. Among them, Tong Yu blinked her big eyes and suddenly shouted, Oh, I forgot about the ink spirit flower. Tong Ye's figure flashed as she ran towards the cave entrance to pick the ink spirit flower. Whoosh! Chapter 147. This sword chi came so suddenly that the Tong family disciples didn't react in time. By the time they reacted, the sword chi had already arrived above Tong Ye's head. Lin Xian's face was gloomy. His soul force was powerful and had already sensed it. When the martial artist hidden in the dark attacked, he moved. Golden electric arcs jumped under his feet. Lin Xian seemed to merge into the wind, his speed extremely fast. Sister Yu. Tong Lan's eyes widened in anger. He didn't think that someone would dare to attack the Tong family. Who? Golden electric arcs flashed, and the sword chi crashed down. Tong Lan and the others' faces changed drastically as they ran forward crazily. When they saw the scene in front of them, they secretly let out a sigh of relief. A terrifying crack appeared in front of the cave entrance, but no one was injured. Tong Yu and Lin Xian stood 15 meters away, unharmed. Sister Yu. Tong Lan ran over. Brother Lan, I'm fine. Young hero Lin saved me. Tong Ye's face was pale, obviously frightened. However, luckily, she wasn't injured and successfully plucked the ink spirit flower. Brother Lin, thank you. Tong Lan said seriously. He didn't dare to imagine what would have happened without Lin Xian. Lin Xian nodded slightly, then looked towards the depths of the forest. Tong Lan and the others understood and returned, also turning around with gloomy faces. Your luck isn't bad to be able to pluck the ink spirit flower. A mocking voice came from the forest. A few figures walked out with powerful auras, looking at Lin Xian and the others with cold smiles. Song Qi. Tong Lan saw the figures in the forest and his pupils constricted. The faces of the people behind him also became very ugly. Although Lin Xian didn't know who was on the other side, he could vaguely guess from the expressions of the Tong family disciples. The people on the other side probably didn't have low statuses, and their strength far surpassed the Tong family. On their side, only Tong Lan was at the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean tier, while the others were at the 2nd layer. Among the people on the other side, 2 were at the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and one of them had an abnormally powerful aura, at the middle stage of the 3rd layer. What do you want to do? We found the ink spirit flower first. Tong Yu shouted. Song Qi looked at Tong Ye's delicate face and exquisite figure, and his eyes flashed with a trace of passion. However, when he saw Lin Xian beside Tong Yu, he frowned. Just now, it was this brat who ruined his good deed. That sword strike just now was extremely tricky. Not only was it able to protect the ink spirit flower, but it was also able to trap Tong Yu without harming her in the slightest. However, this was all his conjecture, and the real situation was destroyed by Lin Xian. Song Qi cautiously looked at Lin Xian. He was somewhat unable to figure out Lin Xian's identity. Your Tong clan is really useless. You even need to find outsiders to be your bodyguards. Song Qi sneered. Nonsense, Brother Lin is not a bodyguard. Tong Yu said angrily. Brother Lin is an elite of the Cloud region. He only acted when he saw that we were in danger. Cloud Prefecture? Song Qi was stunned. He naturally knew of Cloud Prefecture, but why would people from Cloud Prefecture come here? He couldn't figure it out and he wouldn't think about it. As long as it wasn't a force from Qingzhou, he would just kill it. He gave a look behind him and the people behind him instantly understood. I don't care where you're from. A strong youth behind said, Brat, I'll give you a chance. Get lost. Or else, The tall youth stomped his foot, and the ground shattered. Countless cracks spread out in all directions like a python web. Tong Lan and the others had their hearts in their mouths. They all looked at Lin Xian, waiting for his answer. In their opinion, although Lin Xian's cultivation was only at the second layer of the spiritual ocean tier, his sword technique was exceptionally high, and his strength was already comparable to a martial artist at the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If he acted, then they had a high chance of escaping from Zhangqi and the others. However, they also knew that the Zhang clan's power was slightly stronger than their Tong clan, and normal people wouldn't dare to provoke them. Tong Yu also stared nervously at Lin Xian, her small hands tightly gripping her sleeves. I've learned quite a few martial arts techniques, but I've never learned the move of rolling, Lin Xian said indifferently. Why don't you demonstrate how to roll? Who? The Tong clan's disciples couldn't help but laugh, and Tong Yu even covered her mouth and laughed. Brat, you're courting death. The tall youth was furious. He had a noble status, and as a disciple of the Zhang clan, no one dared to tease him like this. Pung! The muscles on his body bulged like a dragon. The tall youth stomped his foot, and the ground shattered as his body flew out like a cannonball. Die! He threw out a punch, and the air was rapidly compressed, making a series of explosions. Retreat! The Tong clan's disciples all retreated, leaving only Tong Lan and Lin Xian standing in the field. Tong Lan secretly accumulated power, ready to attack at any time. On the side, Lin Xian waved his arm, and a streak of sword qi circled around his arm. Hurricane form. The sword ray pierced out, and a green whirlpool appeared in the surroundings. Violent winds blew, and the air was turbulent, forming a huge hurricane in front of Lin Xian, attacking the tall youth. Huchi! A ball of wind spun at high speed, and the energy it contained could crush metal and stone. Rumble! The green hurricane collided with the youth's fist, and turbulence flew everywhere. However, under Lin Xian's control, the wind surged towards the tall youth. The tall youth felt that there were violent winds in all directions, pressuring his body, and at the same time slowing down his speed. Petty tricks! The tall youth roared, and tore his chest with both hands like a ferocious beast. It was as if the void had been torn apart, and a vacuum appeared in front of him. Ha! Die! The tall youth broke through the hurricane, and his body moved forward again. He wanted to smash Lin Xian's head with a punch. Tong Lan, who was at the side, arched his body and was ready to attack. Not far away, Zhangqi looked at Lin Xian with a cold smile. Suddenly, a sword ray lit up the surroundings, and like a flash of lightning, it sent chills down everyone's spine. Puff! The tall youth flew out, and a cross-shaped wound appeared on his chest. It was deep into his flesh, and his bones could be vaguely seen. Hiss! Everyone gasped. Tong Lan's sword was only half drawn, and it was still in mid-air. He was shocked, and his understanding of Lin Xian changed again. He used to think that Lin Xian was only comparable to a martial artist in the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but now it seemed that he could completely kill a martial artist in the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier. On the other side, Zhangqi's face turned ugly. He called for the people behind him to carry the tall youth back. Others didn't know the tall youth's strength, but he was very clear. This youth's name was Zhangji, and his cultivation had reached the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier. His defense was even more shocking. A normal martial artist in the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier was no match for Zhangji, and Lin Xian defeated him with one strike. This was almost impossible. Second layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and his sword skills are super strong. When did the cloud state have such a person? Zhangqi's eyes flashed. The cloud state was at the bottom of the Xia state. Not only were the top fighters lacking, the younger generation was even worse. There were only a few people in the top 100 of the hidden dragon list, and that was not enough. Therefore, the martial artists in the other states of the Xia state looked down on the disciples of the cloud state. However, Lin Xian was obviously an exception. Zhangqi walked out slowly, and said in a low voice, "If you can defeat me, I'll let this go."